Hey everybody, just be about 30 more seconds. Be right there. Okay, it wasn't 30 seconds. Okie doke. Ready. Sorry about that delay there. As always. Appreciate you all hanging in there. Okay. Just tweaking some settings here real quick. Give it a go. Just as a reminder before we get started, this channel is for educational or perhaps entertainment purposes only. It's always important to do your own research and come up with your own conclusions, especially this topic. And, it's a big one. It's a big one. It even, there's going to be kind of a number of different things that we go over as it relates to something like a terminal diagnosis, or maybe you just know your time is coming up due to various other medical things that you're experiencing. But it more terminal diagnosis. I want to stress that. And again, what's going to be talked about here is, again, my opinion. Okay. And viewer discretion is advised. May not be for everybody. Okay. All right. So, what to do? Well, I just want to say hello to everybody out there. Hello, YouTube. Hello, Odyssey, Rumble. Bizwoofer, good to see you. Hope you're doing well. We got the doctor in the house. Restore thyself. Identify me. Beyond Zebra. Holly Fairchild. And everyone else. Should have said that earlier, but hope everyone's doing well. And happy Friday evening. Happy weekend. And so let's get into this really important topic. It's a tough one, right? Because everyone handles themselves differently with something like this. And, well, it's not easy, right? It's definitely difficult, especially when you have family, friends, all sorts of emotions running strong for yourself, for your loved ones, all of that. It becomes very intense. And, I'm sure many of us have experienced someone dying in our lives, but there are a number of people who probably haven't. They may not have lost someone in their lives yet and seen what a terminal diagnosis does and how it all plays out. Everything that's involved with getting through it, right? Helping your loved one get through it. It's a very, very difficult thing to go through. And so part of the discussion that we're going to have tonight is about how you can obviously help yourself, but also help those that you care about to make their decision process easier too. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off kind of with this video. Well, yeah, I'm going to start off with this one video that we're going to go over. And then later on, I'm going to be more or less talking about some big questions that come up in relation to those of us obviously seeking full liberation with a sovereign intention at natural death. There are some big questions related to all that. So that's going to be discussed later in the stream. But I really want to start out with just by giving you an example of how certain things occur. We'll probably be here a while tonight. So depending on your availability, you may end up having to watch this maybe in a couple settings or something. But we'll see. We'll try to get through as much as possible. So we're going to start out with Ralph Harms and his choice to die with dignity. And that's going to be kind of one of the shorter videos. And then the second video is going to be longer and kind of give you a really thorough look at it, the whole process and what's going on between families and doctors and friends and, wives and husbands and children and all that, and how that all kind of comes together. And also, I'm going to talk later on about how there's certain things you can kind of do now and get set up to make this whole process easier. And even things like you feel you need to resolve. Maybe there's certain relationships in your life that maybe you have some regrets, right? And maybe it's better to kind of handle those now, like way in advance than later on down the road. You know what I'm saying? But obviously, that's up to you and how you want to handle all that. Okay, so let's get right into this. And I'm looking forward to spending some time with you here. And I hope you enjoy these videos and then more information that I'm going to share later. Okay, so let's share where. Oh, I did have it up. There it is. Okay, so this is Ralph Harms. Boy,
Ralph Harms battled skin cancer for decades. In January, he discovered a lump in his chest. By May, doctors had determined the cancer had spread throughout his body, and he would likely be dead by August. After learning about California's End-of-Life Option Act, Ralph made a decision that made the most sense for his life and for his death. He also chose to call the press Democrat, hoping to let others know that they had an option. While viewers may find some of the images and some of the content of this video difficult to watch, Harms wanted to help tell that story. He let us witness his final weeks, his final days, and his final moments in an effort to illustrate end-of-life options.
And I think that could be the big title. There is an option. No, of course, you don't have to die like a damn dog. The cancer eating you slowly away.
You know, when he said that, he says you don't have to die like a dog. The crazy thing is that most humans suffer worse deaths due to laws than beloved pets. Now just think about how crazy that is. And I look at it on a level with the whole Luch thing. I really do. It's so barbaric what humans have to go through. And wait till you hear the second video. Really, it's gonna be mind-blowing, the things you hear medical staff talk about and how basically they're not really trained on like end-of-life care. I mean, it's come a long ways, that's for sure. But most of them are not trained on how to deal with a dying patient because their number one objective is to keep them alive, keep them alive, keep them alive. Acknowledging the whole death thing isn't really there in the education for a lot of them. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about, but it's true. All right. Anyways, I know I'm already talking. I just working on adjusting the volume here, so hopefully a little louder for you guys.
And I think that.
Oh shit, that's way too loud. Sorry, guys.
Could be the big title. There is an option. No, of course, you don't have to die like a damn dog. The cancer eating you slowly away and not doing anything about it. And that's in my opinion, a horrible way to die. So to take care of that, be a jump ahead of it, is the cocktail. And of course, all the things I heard about this, it is a horrible way to die. Now, if you have stomach cancer, it might be just in one location, right? Or lung cancer or brain cancer. But this supposedly, from the CAT scan and everything, is all over in my body. So they can't be treat this spot or that spot. No, it's too much. So there's no other way out. I'm going to die. Okay, so now I have an option. How do I want to die? Having the cancer, do it, or me jumping ahead and going, hell no. No, I'm going to win this race or whatever, battle, war. So chug this stuff down and, it won't be horrible. And So that's what I came up with. The fact that her locker was across the hall from mine, and she'd see me on Monday when I come to school. And if you get into street fights, you're not going to win them all. Even if you win them, you're going to get messed up a little. And she would see me messed up, face, hands. And so she finally, one Monday morning said, you know what, I've been thinking, if you hang with me instead of those guys, I think your life would be a whole lot better. I don't even have to look any further in my whole life. I found her. So I got the tat with her name on it.
Will you show it to us?
Yeah. I don't know if you can see it anymore. So I got that when I was 16, and 63 years later, He said, of all the pictures of Kath, he loves that the best because that shows how happy she was about somebody did something. And she's going, isn't that great? So she got that. It was the worst thing that ever happened in my life. Only preceded by my 2 daughters dying of breast cancer. That was super hard. You're never ever supposed to lose your kids. After 63 years of being married, and then we knew each other 4 years before. In other words, met at 15 and got married at 19, okay? So someone that you're that close to, that you raised 4 kids with, yeah.
Now, just hearing that, his 2 daughters died of breast cancer. He's got skin cancer. Now, obviously, this is just a possibility. It's my opinion. I have nothing to back it up with. But about things like this, it's often due to toxins and being concentrated in a certain area. Maybe a Superfund site that wasn't known at the time, or is known but is hidden and difficult to maybe come across. And everyone's got their lives running. There are loads of examples out there of entire neighborhoods getting cancer. Not saying this is one of them, but when you hear things like this, it makes you wonder. I don't know.
I would sometimes wonder how in the hell I handled it. That just killed me for wanting to go on. And then the day after she died, this is our house. Neighbor right across the street looked out and saw a double rainbow. It said, Kathleen sent you a message. Well, there's 2 options. I'll let the cancer take me slowly, and it'll be ugly and painful, and definitely not any fun at all. Or be in charge, and no, that's what I'm going to do. This is the date I'm going to do it. This is the time I'm going to do it, and be in charge for one last time. And that's what I chose to do. But no, burgers sound damn.
Don't you like that? He's like, I'm going to be in charge this one last time. I like it.
The time I'm going to do it, and be in charge for one last time. And that's what I chose to do. But no, burgers sound damn good. Thank you.
Oh, by the way, the subtitles are not always 100%. I'm just leaving them up there.
So you repair faucets, and you do gardening work, and you deliver beer, and you also cook burgers, huh? Damn, you got a lot of talent. Yeah, and a good haircut too. Jeez, you know what? I guess you're at the top of the damn list. 30th, I had to take that potion, and so that's what's up. Yeah, so I hate to tell you that.
Safe, no kidding, you're in better shape than I am. Look at you.
I was, I was, you know that. Glad I run into you and a chance to tell you, but yeah, it's incurable, and it just kind of exploded through my body. They told me what's happening, and so anyway, I picked that date, and that's what's adios, you know.
You're killing me, Smalls.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So anyway, yeah. Hate to tell you, but anyway, okay, Mike, you take care, man. And yeah, how's your son doing?
He's doing good.
Good.
He's doing really good. Thanks to people like you.
And you know, boom.
Yeah.
So the suddenness is a hell of a shock. The long dragged out, like with cancer patients or something, you know what's going to happen eventually, but you have, I guess, time to say goodbye or whatever. So I don't know which is worse. Let's put it that way. There is no better in this. Say, oh, this is a better way. No, man, there ain't no better way. It's which is the worst way to die. Of course, somebody's going to die. And if it's somebody that you're that close to for that many years, super tough. The doctors told me that probably make it through July, but forget August. It's not going to happen. You're going to die, and it'll probably be first part of August. So whatever you plan to do, sure as hell better, you know, plan and do it. So that's what I've done, and so you know, there will be time, and I am saying goodbye. I've called a lot of my friends, guys I was in the military with, and I think I told you the other day I got 7 phone calls one night from guys that I was in special forces with, and yeah. Hey, I heard, man, I'm sorry. I wish I could be there. I love you, baby. You know, and yeah, that was hard. Of course, no, some of these guys were real badasses, and to have spent time with them doing what we did, and to have them crying on the phone, talking to me, of course, that I'm going to be checking out. That was hard. That was real hard.
Wait, go a bit farther out, Phil. Yeah, there you go.
Very symbolic, huh?
Yeah, this has been good, man.
Is it good?
Good ride.
Good ride. And it goes something like this. The winds have welcomed you with softness. The sun has blessed you with his warm hands. You have flown so high and so well that God has joined you in your laughter and sent you gently back into the loving arms of Mother Earth. Welcome to the
Whoa, all right. You're
And
so
the
chill.
prayer is on your glass, and the glass is for you to keep.
Okay,
Oh,
thank you.
thanks so much.
I don't know about the loving arms of Mother Earth type thing, but it's a touching, really touching tribute,
Yeah, you're in. Drink it.
living tribute.
Not straight.
Well, it's an up party to counterbalance Friday's down party, which is not really a party, but down event. Let's put it that way. Yeah, so within 2 days, we're doing something fun, ho-ho-hoing, you know, and then Friday, it's like, hey, see y'all, you know.
We're gonna do the best.
Ralph.
Yeah.
You know,
Here we
we've
go.
had,
Here's to you,
I know
Ralph.
you will.
we've had
Doug and Gene.
We've had some
You've
good
had a
times.
total good
We've had
run.
some good times out
a
on this
good
town.
run here in the neighborhood,
Oh.
you know.
God, yeah.
And you and
Yeah.
Kathleen have taught us a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
You really have. You know, I mean, and how you go about dealing with a lot of different things, and
No.
Very much appreciated.
It's just like, we're like, is this a wake? Is this the pre-wake? Is this the pre-funeral? We don't even.
I'm sorry that the audio levels are in this video are kind of jumpy, but hopefully you guys are hearing it okay.
Very much appreciated.
It's just like, we're like, is this a wake? Is this the pre-wake? Is this the pre-funeral? We don't even know what to say about, but it's just very odd. But I have a feeling in other cultures this is not so odd. I think in our culture it might be really considered to be strange. I think in other cultures it's probably not. It's probably more acceptable.
Yeah.
I'm not thrilled.
Absolutely, it's more acceptable. The way the West handles death is just insane. It's like you can't talk about it, not supposed to talk about it, not supposed to think about it, and then when it happens, it's everything is misery. Whereas a lot of other countries, it's like a celebration of the individual's life who passed. It's just nuts. I mean, if I told you the shit I grew up with around funerals, like it is just insanity. Insanity. Just, I'll talk about it a little later. It's just wow.
I think in other cultures it's probably not. It's probably more acceptable. I'm not thrilled to be here. Of course, I'm not thrilled at all to be here. But I think part of what I think of is good for him. He's going out exactly the way he wants to.
Exactly.
It's a little controversial.
No, it's not.
But I say, I've seen people languish in bed for months with painful cancers. And so I say, if this is what you want, if this is your way to go out, I'm kind of all for it.
See, that's the key thing. It's like when the time comes, it's up to you how you want to handle it. And look at this. This is like a really beautiful thing. He's planned it. He's to allow himself to suffer endlessly. And he's had this gathering and all that. And he's doing it on his own terms. I mean, you got. I mean, it's a really, really beautiful thing. And I mean, it's just, it's really, really touching.
And so I say, if this is what you want, if this is your way to go out, I'm kind of all for it.
And it's not weird or strange. It's like, think about it. What's the other option? Oh, just, like, and some people want to, live till the last breath possible, right? And that's totally cool. That's up to them. But some of us might not want to do that. And not want to suffer endlessly, like, and hang on for an extra 2 months or 3 months or 4 months. Drooling on the side of a bed, like in tremendous pain and all that, and like going in and out of consciousness. I mean, there's just so many different things that like can happen, and they're not good. So, I think it's something each of us has to think of as an individual. Again, this is all my opinion, and going over this entire stream, because at the end of the day, everyone has to make up their own mind when their time comes, if faced with a terminal diagnosis, on how to handle this type of a situation. And I think it'll be easier than most of us think, right? It's just probably getting over that initial information, and a lot of what you find with end of life care, and hospice and all this stuff, you really find that a lot of people hang on for others. It's not that they haven't necessarily come to terms with passing themselves. It's usually because of others, their loved ones, their friends or family, certain things that they have unresolved. Like it's a lot of it is concentrated in those areas. Now, I'm not saying that's the case every time, but in a lot of them, that's exactly what's happening.
You said, Doug, you think we need to have a party before Friday, because Friday is going to be really bad and really down. Don't you think we should have something that's really up and exciting and fun? And it started out with just a few people, and it kind of grew because somebody told somebody else, and of course Ralph told somebody else, and they go, oh yeah, so that's why, or that's not why, but it's how it grew, because there's so many people that just have loved Ralph for as long as he's been in Santa Rosa.
You know, the parties that Ralph and I have thrown in here, two people that run their toes. Unfortunately, so yeah.
We were close before the heart attack because we were playing golf. But after the heart attack, I watched this man turn blue on the ground, and I realized that life is really fragile. And when we brought him back and watching him recover from his bypass surgery, all the cancer surgeries that he's had such a strong attitude about, almost like, I can go one more round. I can get in the ring one more time. And this time, it's the last round of the last fight. And he said, I've done the best I can. I've lived the best life I can. I hope the people that are left can understand why I'm doing this. And I love you guys.
Hey, Ralph.
Hey,
The white stuff. You're like the red stuff.
We had to go to red. Okay.
You see an orb fly by? And that sign, too.
The red stuff.
We had to go to red.
I think it was. Hold on. You guys mind if I obsess over something for a moment? Hold on. Oh, shit. How do I do this? Hold on. I'm going to mute it while this... it comes... See the lady? I think it might come out of her head. Or right around there. And then it whizzes past the guy in the hat. I'll try to pause it once I see it. Hopefully if I can catch it in time. Right around here. Come on. Sorry, guys. Maybe it's too slow. Oh, shit. I didn't see it. All right. I'm sorry. I don't want to hold things up.
Hey, Ralph.
Let's see.
The white stuff. You're like the red stuff.
We had to go to red.
You see it? It went. It didn't come out of her head. It definitely came. All right. Anyways, whatever.
Okay, you know what, the liquor store right down the street, I forget the name of it, they sell red wine. No, good people, good
But I laugh because I look at my phone and I just hit that doohickey and it tells you where your phone is.
And that tore me up, you know? And yeah, I had a hard time when you all came here tonight. I was thinking, oh my God, you know, trying to meet and greet and do the whole thing, and it was tough, but thank God you all hung in there, and I appreciate it, man. You know?
Kathleen would be proud of you.
Yeah. You know what? It was a great party. It was a great party.
Just like she wanted.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no. Give me some, babe. But anyway, yeah. Good. Well, hey, thank you for coming, man. I appreciate it. Yeah. And enjoy the papers. Now, here's the deal. You will probably get Saturday's paper for maybe a month. And then you're on your own.
And unfortunately, I'm going to be on my own anyway now. I'll give you a call tomorrow though when the kids get down here. Okay? No, I'm not sure what time, but it might be really my best friend.
Thank you.
Same here, Ralph. Well, take care. Enjoy
You too.
the company.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
Have a good night.
I will.
This is a hard one too. What does today feel like? I mean, very few people are in your position when they know when they're gonna go.
Right.
And that's tomorrow for you. Like, what does today feel like?
Oh, today? I had an okay sleep last night. I got up, had coffee, sat here at the table, and I read the cards. That was the first thing I did. And I kept getting up to get a Kleenex, and finally I said, you know what? I brought the whole box to the table. Oh, they're great cards. Yeah, I'm lucky. A lot of people like me. Some, I feel they even love me, but in reading those, oh my God, oh no, come on, man.
Has anything changed for you since we started talking, like in the last 2 weeks? Like anything changed about your feelings about tomorrow, or?
No, not at all. No, once I commit my mind to something, tendency to follow through. I think it's that German mentality. We must do it like this, and I weighed the options, and Hello? Yeah.
This guy, man, just a warrior. Really, really touching. Just gotta tip your hat.
Yes, Carol, how are you? Oh, I'm holding up great, which is scary. You know what I'm saying? Why am I feeling this good, But,
Interesting, right? He says, why am I feeling this good? It's almost like he's having, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm not saying this is exactly what's occurring, but there's definitely some comparisons to be made in a slightly different way. Well, if any of you experienced someone in their final days, right? Like, often what will occur is they'll go from being in horrible condition, right? And then they'll have this moment of terminal lucidity. I've seen it, with pets too. And they go from being in the worst condition to just all of a sudden, like you would swear nothing is wrong with them. And like they're eating, they're drinking, they've got all this energy, and then what it does, this is the worst part, is it provides this false hope, right? Oh my God, they're turning around. Oh my God, what's going on? It's a miracle, this, that. And then things go right back to the way they were. It's a really, and I'm not saying this is exactly what he's experiencing, but given the words that he used, maybe it's something similar. I don't know. I mean, like this is like a destiny that he set forth for himself, and he's in the at the very end of it. And so maybe this is something comparable to that in a different situation. He's not like in a vegetative state or dealing with dementia or Alzheimer's, and then there's all this clarity for, a few hours or an afternoon or a whole day. Those types of things can vary. But it's interesting, right? And just something to consider. I thought I'd throw it out there.
You know what I'm saying? Why am I feeling this good, But
Why am I feeling this good?
Yeah, no, that's very true. I am. And it's working out good. No, I had just lunch with 3 of my good friends, today. And we had a little party last night for some other really good friends. And so no, it's rolling along. And then tomorrow is game time, Yeah. It's weird to think that you're going to do this yourself, man? Ooh, yeah, I can understand that. People looking at me and going, what the hell? But see, they're not living inside this body. Like, I'll give you an example. Last night, I went to bed around 10:30, whatever, rolled around for like an hour. Pain wouldn't go away. Got up, sat in the rocking chair till 3 o'clock this morning. Finally got tired, went back to bed, got up at 6. Of course, I woke up again because of the pain. So I dragged myself through the day, of course, a lack of sleep, in pain, very unhappy, waiting for Friday. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, the pain would be gone. Yeah, but you know what? To go on, if I knew that I had 6 more months of this, dealing with this pain every day and every night, no. I mean, no. And what is 6 months going to give me? Nothing, but no sleep and pain.
That's it right there, right? What is 6 months going to give me? That's what I was talking about earlier. But what? Pain, no sleep, agony. I just want to go to the comment section really quick based on what I was just talking about with the whole terminal lucidity thing. Now keep in mind, like he was saying that, I don't know why I'm feeling so good. And I forgot that, in this video, tomorrow is when he's going through with it. So that kind of even gives it a little more legs as a possible like alternative terminal lucidity where he's feeling good. But in the same breath, what did he say? He said, last night, I couldn't get to sleep, had to, sitting in a rocking chair and was tossing and turning, et cetera, et cetera. B-Arc, good to see you, B-Arc. B-Arc says, my dad, who was dying of lung cancer, looked so healthy the night before he died. Yep, that's it. I mean, it happens so often. And then XL says, they call it the good day. My cat rallied to do her favorite things in a few days before she died. Played with the toy, sat on the windowsill, etc. See, like that's it. It's it's wild. And it's some sort of program embedded into this realm we all find ourselves in.
Is that fun? Not in my mind or my world. No. So I have a choice of ending it, which is drink this stuff, party over, and
These last nights have been mostly sleepless as I review memories and reluctantly approach this partying. How can a spirit as vividly alive as Ralph's be stilled? So my head knows that the cancer is inexorable. And I know that your pain has gotten stronger, it's lasting longer. But the Ralph we've seen in these last few weeks is the Ralph we've always known. Vital, so alive, that even his indomitable will cannot overcome the effects of the disease. And Ralph has looked at death and said, I'm not afraid of death, but I've been in charge of my whole life, and I will be in charge of the way I die.
Hell yeah.
Though Ralph respects the rules of sports, he is not above a little wheeling and dealing. Look with me here, people.
Yeah.
If he can't get to the finish line in the way he wants, on his own 2 feet, then he can move the finish line a little bit closer.
And we talked a little bit about it yesterday, that around 10:15, something like that. Take the first one, which takes about an hour, and hopefully that goes smoothly. And then take the second one, that takes about a half hour. Hope that goes smoothly. And then the last one is, I'll be in, he said, where do you want to be? And I said, maybe just lay in bed. Said, okay, fine. Most people do. No, just smoothing with no hitches. That's what I want. No, like, oh, you know what? No, I don't want that. Smooth as silk and out of here.
Ralph Harms died peacefully in his own bed at 12:23 p.m. on Friday, July 30th, with his children Mary and Joe by his side and good friends nearby. 1,816 people in California have used the Death with Dignity cocktail since enacted 5 years ago. And shout out to Carrie Benefield for the video. Okay. So really, really important to put this out there that, this video was done to only be directed at those who end up with a terminal diagnosis. That's it. If you feel certain thoughts, or like about harm, something like that, please check the video description. There are links at the very bottom of every description of each video I do, and numbers and helplines and various resources depending on where you are in the realm. And I want to really, really stress that, right? It's really important. This video just serves for educational purposes only. And, I know things can be a struggle, but there are reasons why this is not something you would do or consider in any other scenario. Okay. I know things can be difficult, but just know, that you're not alone, and that there are good, well-meaning individuals out there who can help, and they're just a phone call away. Okay? All right. So let's move on to the second video. Now, this one's going to kind of give you a really in-depth look at it's called The Last Chapter and end-of-life care. Okay?
The following is a news and public affairs presentation.
Life is an exquisite gift, but it's not permanent. You got to think about what you want for yourself and what you don't want for yourself.
It doesn't mean because you complete an advanced directives that you're going to die tomorrow, but it's for the future. It's for, you complete it while you're able to make those decisions for yourself.
Some want to go to the intensive care unit and be on a breathing machine and fight for every last moment. And others clearly say, I want to die at home and I want to be comfortable, and the last thing I want to do is be in the hospital at the end of life.
Yep. Who wants to
There's
leave
often a time
this
when
place at the hospital?
all of these advances in medicine are no longer our friend. They become the enemy when they make a person's life more difficult.
You're on your last chapter, and the majority of people, when you ask them, they know how they want that last bit of their life to be.
So Amy, tell us a little bit about your client today.
She has lung cancer. She is very independent still. I usually just go to have general conversation with her and do her hair. She likes her hair done. So I wash her hair and curl it, and that's about the extent of the care that she gets right now. She's still pretty able to do for herself.
But in just a few weeks, that will change. On a cloudy autumn afternoon, Amy Shoemake of the Hospice of Southern West Virginia is on her way to visit 73-year-old Joyce Cheesebrew. Joyce and her husband Bill have shared their home in Raleigh County for half a century.
I believe they've been married for 50 or 60 years. It's been a long time, and I'm sure it'll be hard when you're with someone for that long for them to eventually not be there anymore. It is very emotional. It is emotional for us, although we try our best, not that it always happens, because there are some patients that we get very close to, not to show emotion in the home, because, you know, how can you be there for them if you're discombobulated yourself? There's many times a lot of us will leave the home. You go up the road, pull off on the side of the road, and just cry and cry and cry and cry. But we do the best that we can do to possibly help any way we can. We just deal with situations as they may come. Hello, good afternoon. How are you today, sir? Very good, thank you. Where's your beautiful wife at? Hi, darling. How are you doing? Good.
Joyce Cheesebrew has decided she will die at home. She's completed a medical power of attorney, a living will, and a do not resuscitate card.
120/56. Yes, ma'am.
So just listen to that.
She will die at home. She's completed a medical power of attorney,
Medical power of attorney, a
a
living,
living will, and a do
and a
not
DNR.
resuscitate card.
120/56. Yes, ma'am.
Hospice workers will visit weekly, daily, and eventually remain here around the clock to the end with Joyce and her family.
I think it's pretty nice that Amy comes in and does your hair.
I do too. I think it's wonderful.
Does she do a good job?
Yes.
They take pretty good care of you, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Can you tell me, Joyce, what it means to you to be able to stay in your home versus care in an outside facility?
It's more than you could dream, you know, because people don't want to go away from home, you know.
No.
They want to be in their home.
Who the hell would want to die in a hospital if they had a choice, right? I mean, come on. And thankfully, there's a lot of, you know, this option is available to pretty much everyone. Speak for other countries, but it is available. You might have to deal with some bullshit to get it, but it when push comes to shove, there are ways to get it. And I want to thank B-Arc for the very kind super chat. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you kindly.
And it's too good to be true, almost.
And so you find peace staying here, and you're at peace because you're able to stay at home.
Mm-hmm. And that hospice is taking care of me.
Does hospice take care of the other members of your family too? Your husband, your children?
Yes. See, my son wanted me to come live with them. But we don't want to leave our home, you know. But we didn't know what else to do, really. And then somebody said something about hospice. I didn't know. I thought it was something you paid for, you know. And we didn't have a lot of money to pay for anything, you know, so I found out about it. And it's amazing. You just... So God's looking out for me.
And how do you like to spend your days now?
I just do little things, little cleaning. I can't do big cleaning. But I just do little cleaning along. I used to quilt, but I can't do that anymore.
And you have family coming in to visit you?
Yeah.
Who's coming in?
My daughter and her husband tonight.
Okay, so, given what's being discussed in the chat, like, the biggest problem is for, like, they draw a line. It's so for someone like Heather, goes through tremendous suffering, right? They're basically, in order to go through with something like what has been discussed on this stream, or to quote unquote be allowed to do it through that process, you have to normally be diagnosed terminal with 6 months or less to live. It varies a little bit, but that's the problem is not, like, if you don't have that terminal diagnosis thing attached and you're dealing with what Heather deals with, it's just not factored into things at this moment. But it's such a weird thing to even talk about, and like I do got to be careful here. I do want to kind of stick with the topic of terminal diagnoses, and my heart goes out to Heather. It really does. I know you struggle tremendously, and don't feel ashamed to speak your mind. We're all here for you and want nothing but the best for you in whatever way possible. No matter how small it is, it's I don't know, just the levels of logic and lack of logic in this area is astounding. It really is.
Tonight.
Well, Amy's pretty good at the curling iron.
She's the only practice I get.
Now you tell me. I had to start tipping you, Amy.
Having conversation with you and spending time with you is my tip.
Oh, that's sweet.
It sure helps me.
It's I've had the opportunity to speak with a number of hospice workers over the years, a lot of them privately, who don't want to go on camera or share everything, for obvious reasons. Really, you know, big job, right? And probably talking about the things that we talk about is not something they want out there, and I totally get it. But if you've been around them, if you've spoken to them, they are a special, special breed of individual. Like, they are, I mean, just incredible. Like, just talk about like the epitome of empathy and compassion for others. Just I mean, I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. But they do it every day. And they're straight up warriors of, and the embodiment of empathy and compassion for others is just mind blowing. And you gotta just send all your love towards them for what they do.
I think another good thing with hospice is not only do they want to stay in their home, that yes, it may be the end, but they're still alive. They still want to live life. And when they're in their home, they can do that. They can do what they want to do. Every day is a blessing.
Yeah.
When your health isn't that good, it becomes very costly. And one good thing with hospice is they pay for your medications that are, attributed to your diagnosis. So you're not looking at spending $400 or $500 a month on medication. You don't have to pay them to come into your home and spend time with you. You don't have to worry about, how am I going to pay this bill? How am I going to pay, that bill?
And see, that's so important, right? It's like everything is just taken care of, and there are ways to get this, again, in the United States. And I would say in a lot of places. I'm not going to say every place, but this type of care is grants. There are all sorts of, there's emergency help through Medicaid, Medicare, and of course there's varying levels and all that stuff, but it is out there. So if you end up having a friend, a family member, or yourself faced with something like this level of care is available. You just have to do some digging or have someone you trust and that look for it for you.
Need the nurses, they'll come, just call them.
24 hours a day we're on call.
Well, Joyce, you have children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. That's a lot to be grateful for.
It certainly is. And a husband at 54 years.
That's lovely.
What else could you want for? We've had our ups and downs, ain't we, honey?
Yeah, but hasn't been bad.
Nope.
Matter of fact, most of them been good.
Yeah. You can go in peace when when you got that much.
There's perhaps not a more difficult subject to talk about with a loved one than death, yours or theirs. But healthcare providers and families who have found themselves in the middle of medical crises will tell you, not knowing what medical treatment your loved one wants and doesn't want at the end of life, or not sharing your own wishes, can have heartbreaking, physically painful, and yes, costly consequences.
Really, really important here.
The good news is West Virginia ranks highest in the nation, with 50% of its citizens having completed advance directives. Those include a living will, a medical power of attorney, a do not resuscitate order, among other directives available. But of course, the other side of that statistic is half of West Virginia citizens have not documented their end-of-life wishes.
With all that you know professionally, why haven't you made out your advance directives?
That's a good question. There's no answer for that. It's just one of those things that people put off until the last moment, and the last moment comes and it's too late to do it.
Do you have a certain peace of mind now that you have made your wishes known?
Yes. Yes. Well, when it comes time to go, I don't want, things hooked up to me. I don't want to, when the doctor says that's it, it's in my medical power of attorney. My son and my husband both know what I want, and they say they will follow my instructions.
And we often don't think about that in middle age to make out those decisions.
We didn't think about it until I lost my mother and father fairly young. I was only 33 when my mother passed away, and she got cancer and very quickly went to where she didn't know what was going on. And we had to have her admitted to a hospice care unit in the hospital. And they had to ask us how, what her wishes were. And we hadn't discussed that with her ever. And my dad and my brother both looked at me like I was supposed to know. And it was a really hard decision to make. But I tried to go with what I thought her beliefs were and the way she felt. But without having that written down, it's you never know if you've made the right choice.
The discussions themselves are hard to begin.
Dr. Heidi Wareheim is a hospitalist, a generalist at Thomas Memorial Hospital in South Charleston.
Do you think that, on a whole, physicians, healthcare providers might shy away from that uncomfortable conversation?
Yeah, who wants to say, I can't help you? A lot of people are just uncomfortable about death in general. And to bring up the subject of death-related decisions and end of life, and I always say the last chapter of your book, it's, are we on the first page of the last chapter, middle page, the end? It's all debatable, but it's very uncomfortable, and we're not taught that in medical training.
Did you hear that?
You are taught to just push forward to the end and not accept something that's just a natural process.
Seriously, think about how insane that is. Let's just re-listen.
Middle page, the end, it's all debatable, but it's very uncomfortable, and we're not taught that in medical training.
We're not.
You're not. You are taught to just push forward to the end and not accept something that's just a natural process. We're taught how to rejoice at birth, but we're not taught how to make the end of life. Maybe not.
When the Loosh baby comes into the world, let's celebrate. But when when you're leaving here, no, you must hang on for everything that's holy until the last kernel of Loosh can be harvested. That's really the translation. It's insane, right? But maybe I'm reaching, but really, that's what it seems like. No, we must continue. I don't care if they just got a pinky moving. Let's go. Keep them on life support.
A joyful moment, but a peaceful and happy and dignified moment.
Wareheim says that's when she relies on the trust that has developed between her and her patient.
Particularly as a provider, I know the patient well enough that I can say, I love seeing you, I love taking care of you, but this isn't the best for you, that you are at the end of this disease that we can't cure, and present the other options of long-term hospice care in the home, in a nursing home, things like that. That's an ideal situation when there's a relationship with the patient and the family, and we can look at where we're at with the disease and make plans from there so they don't have to spend their time in the hospital and getting poked and multiple tests, and everybody has a chance to come to grips with it.
Hey Cheryl, did you find that one test I was looking for?
I did. It's been granted.
Okay, so it's all been...
Dr. Bruce Foster is a family practice physician and chair of ethics and investigational studies at Thomas Memorial.
Where ethics comes into end-of-life care is it's all communication. You learn to talk, you learn to speak English, you kind of jump ahead of what you think what they need to know. My dying people, and typically wives outlive husbands, they know that this process is going to happen. They know that there may be this bloody mess. They know that this is what we kind of expect.
Because you prepared them.
Yeah. And frequently, and when they come in and they come to their cancer, they come back from their oncologist, I don't say, well, how was your oncologist? I say, how was your visit to your cancer doctor? Okay. The cancer on your X-ray.
Interesting, right? Like, you know, it's almost like, yeah, how was your visit to your oncologist? No, how was the visit to your cancer doctor? It's a harsh truth in the reality of the situation. So it's interesting what he says after this, because people appreciate honesty instead of, you know, things being kind of cloaked or fluffed up so that, you know, maybe you can, in all honesty, delude yourself that, you know, I'm going to be okay, when in fact the diagnosis is terminal.
Oncologist, I said, how was your visit to your cancer doctor? Okay, the cancer on your X-ray is not really getting smaller. I don't pussyfoot around. I use the nasty words. Okay, and the wives frequently come up and say, that made me uncomfortable at the time, but I'm glad I knew.
Foster agrees there's an important component of medical training still missing when it comes to end-of-life care.
Doctors know medicine, they know the science, but they don't know how to speak English. What's mom's test? Oh, the ejection fraction's 14%. To the doctor, that's a fatal number. You have to say your heart's not squishing very well and your mom is dying. Many doctors don't know how to tell bad news. They'll kind of hem and haw. You'll see reports all the time. Patient deteriorating, prognosis poor. No, the guy's dying. And by not telling people that they're dying, you rob them of a stage of their life that can be exquisite.
You rob them of experiences they can have to go out on their own terms, right? Instead of, like, you know, oh, let's try this, let's try that, let's try this, let's try that. Like, let's go to the ends of the earth realm. Try this and try that. Meanwhile, all that time could be spent, you know, saying goodbye. Could be something silly. Listen to a song, watching a movie with your daughter, your son. Anything, right? Just not involving yourself with all these overly aggressive forms of hope, which, you know, kind of rewinding back to the first video. Oh, maybe you can extend your life 3 months, 6 months, but in the end, like, you're a shell of yourself most of the time. Or you've been through so much freaking pain and suffering that you're not even capable of enjoying those times to say goodbye. And the whole saying goodbye thing, that's like, you know, we're going to get into that later on. And my opinions on that, which some of you may, you know, get, some of you may not. And you know, it's a choice of each of us as individuals. But, you know, I've talked about it before, so some of you may already be familiar with that. But we're going to talk more about that later.
You.
Yes.
You explain things, can I say it, down to earth?
Uh-huh.
We don't have to be able to have a dictionary beside us. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm glad that you don't need a dictionary.
Because my daughter went to school and she'd say, Mom, help me with all the vocabulary. Of course, you know that speaking, you know, the words of the physician.
Yes.
But you broke it down. You gave us time, my family, to voice how they felt, what they expected, and you clarified.
Uh-huh.
And you demonstrated in your kindness that we knew, I don't want to use it in a wrong way, but a two-face. In other words, you laid it down honestly and openly. She expressed much, and she let my children voice how they felt, and then they gave me understanding about the CPR.
Yes.
And it took a while, and after they expressed, Mom, this, how we feel, this, what we can expect, and I got calm, and I said, okay, Lord, and I let him take it off, that you will let him go peacefully. And
It's like you have to also understand when you're in a decision-making process like this, whether you're making the decisions and you're lucidly aware to make the decisions, or if you have a caregiver making those decisions, this is so, you know, obviously it's really big. So when it's something this massive, it's not something people can always rationally wrap their heads around like in 24 hours, you know? I mean, it takes some time. So essentially by the MDs not being honest with the patients and the family, what that does is it prolongs the inevitable until the family finally faces the truth of the situation. And so instead of honesty coming forth when it mattered, a bunch of time has already passed by, and then like they're hit with it upside the head, and then like kind of rapid fire decision making needs to be made, or like they're fighting against the clock, right? They're fighting against father time. I don't know about father time. You know, they're fighting against time to the eventual death of their loved one. And meanwhile, they could have had a bunch of time with them in that process where they weren't basically being shielded from the truth. You know what I'm saying? These are like, this is like the fact that this still goes on, like where honesty isn't put forward because of lack of training when they know full well that's really, really wrong. Things have improved. There's no doubt about that. So I'm not saying like this is like it's a problem, but it has gotten better. There's no doubt about that. But it also depends who you end up having as a doctor. Ends up who you have as a caregiver. It ends up who you have, you know, how you're able to process. Some people just are in denial to the end, you know, and like, but that's, you know, there's so many different factors. So having honesty up front makes things so much easier in the long run for the whole process and everyone involved. And so I think when talking to a doctor, it's like, hey, you know, just give it to me. Tell me what's up. You know, may not want to hear it, or I can handle it, but, you know, just be honest with me. That's what you got to say to him, right? And then you're giving yourself more time as a result to go through that whole process with yourself, your friends, your family, your loved one.
That's the best way.
Good. All right. Well, I'm glad that the conversation was helpful and that.
Oh, if there was.
Teaching healthcare providers how to talk to patients and families about death, end-of-life medical options, and the importance of advanced directives is an ongoing effort at the West Virginia Center for End-of-Life Care in Morgantown. Dr. Alvin Moss is an internist, a nephrologist, and the center's project director.
Do you want to go to the hospital at the end of life, or do you want to try and be kept comfortable at home? Would you want to be put on a breathing machine in the intensive care unit, or would you prefer less aggressive medical treatment? Do you want intravenous fluids? Do you want antibiotics? Do you want a feeding tube? What is it you want? What is it you don't want? Now, of course, for patients to be able to answer those questions and for families to be able to answer those questions, they need to understand, well, what are the options and will a feeding tube help or not help? Will a breathing machine help or not help? And so there's our challenge to educate not only doctors but the public.
Moss says these are the questions that need to be considered and answered in advanced directives by all adults. The Center for End-of-Life Care distributes 50,000 of these forms a year, as well as providing information through its phone line and website.
We in West Virginia have a living will form, and we have a medical power of attorney form, and we have a combined form, which includes both. And the form that's completed the most in our state is the combined form. And once somebody's 18 years old, they can do a combined advanced directive that basically says, I want this person to be my decision maker if I'm too sick to make decisions for myself. And if that person is unavailable for some reason, I want this person to be my successor, my backup representative to make decisions for me. And then the living will says, if I'm terminally ill or if I'm permanently unconscious, these are the treatments I would want. These are the treatments I wouldn't want. And so what we find is most people, I was talking to you earlier and we were saying 3/4 of West Virginians say, really at the end of life, I don't want to die on machines. I want to be kept comfortable, and preferably die at home. And so somebody who has those values would want to do a combined living will and medical power of attorney.
These directives are also available in hospitals and physicians' offices. They do need to be notarized, but attorney services are not needed, and they can be changed or updated as often as the individual wants. When directives have not been documented and wishes are unknown, a medical emergency can tear a family apart.
Something traumatic happens or a catastrophic illness, end up in the intensive care unit, on a ventilator, can't speak for themselves, multiple family members, and it doesn't matter if this person is 20 or if this person's 90, it's the same thing. And we don't know who makes the decisions. They haven't talked about which of the siblings is going to make the decisions. They have no idea what mom or dad or grandma would want. And then a lot of times you'll see internal disagreements within families.
Now, that's the worst, right? Because something isn't set up in advance, and you got brothers, you got sisters, it doesn't matter. You got family involved, and they're thinking about what your care should be once vegetative state or, unable to make decisions for yourself in some way, shape, or form. So let's just say you have, two brothers and a sister, right? But one brother and one sister, are like, no, we don't want, mom or dad to suffer anymore. Like we are informed about the situation. We know where things stand, and we don't want them to just be hooked up to a breathing machine. But then you have the other sibling saying, no, 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 no. Think about that, guys. That could happen. And meanwhile, you're stuck there on a breathing machine. So this is why this isn't something you have to do this second, but it's something that should be done, and I'll be completely open with y'all. I haven't completed all this stuff. So it's like talking about it today. It's giving me motivation to make sure that it's done. and to have my directives clear. That way, nobody can kind of interfere, intercede with whatever my directives are, right? I'm not going to be, dealing with a feeding tube and stuck on a breathing machine for days, months, weeks, years. No way, no how. And so the only way to make sure that that doesn't happen is by me as an individual going forward and doing what I need to do for me. And that applies to all of us. So, like, just if you're going to take anything from this stream, please just think about this segment. Because that way you're setting things up. And, in some states, I don't know about all states, but I know in some states you don't even need an attorney, right? Like for instance, West Virginia here, you can get these forms, fill them out, get them notarized, and apparently they're legally binding, right? And you can even kind of go a step further. I mean, hiring attorneys costs money, right? But there's usually like a fixed fee for, these types of things, especially like wills and, DNRs, all this stuff. There's usually a fixed fee most of the time. It's still going to be a bit of a chunk of change, probably $1,000 or whatever it is. But that doesn't necessarily mean maybe more. I don't know, maybe less. And then there's even kind of like I've seen like certain things like where like you can go like to, it's not like a conference, but it's almost like a meeting, right? And you can kind of get all this stuff set up for the low price of $7.99, and boom, you're all set, right? But check your state, right? Do some digging. Maybe you can even email the state and say, hey, what is the cheapest way for me to put my directives to my family out there, right? And make them legally binding. Maybe it only needs a notary, right? But like I'll add one thing to kind of maybe make it a little more valid, and maybe it's valid, I don't know about in terms of the law, but videotape it, right? Videotape yourself, or have someone videotape you signing it in front of the notary, zoom in on the date and all that stuff. Like, there are kind of ways to make it a little more foolproof, right? But at the end of the day, the law is the law. So I'm just trying to throw some ways to kind of make it a little more binding if it were to ever be questioned.
What do you do in that situation?
Mediate. I can't. My job is to mediate, to give information of where that person is physically, and then mediate decisions. Sit with them and let them talk. And it's not easy. And that's not the time to be making the decisions. This is something that should have been made sitting at the dinner table with your family members when life is good and happy and you don't have the fear of the loss of someone.
Whenever I see a new patient, I bring up advance directives at the very first visit. So it's a continuing conversation. Okay, so now that we've actually finished your exam, there's just a couple other things I want to talk about.
Sure.
Okay. I understand you were really sick in Louisiana.
Most definitely I was, yes.
You were on a respirator for?
I was on about 37 days in a coma in ICU on a respirator.
Yeah, what I want you to really understand is that I don't want you doing what I tell you, okay?
Okay.
I want it to make sense to you,
Sure.
okay?
Right.
And you, I'm not the one in charge. You have the right to say yes. You have the right to say no. You have the right to say I want to do it and I don't want to do it.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah, sure.
How can we empower the patient and family to get the information? It is not that difficult. It's really actually very easy. All you have to do is have 5 questions answered. And in words that you understand, not medical jargon. What's wrong with me? What are you offering me? What are the risks and benefits? What are the alternatives? And what if I do nothing? If I know those 5 things, I can make a good decision. That's essentially the elements of informed consent. Now, the only problem we got is there might be a time when you can't tell people.
Informed consent. Informed consent. Remember, there was a lack of that not that long ago. A few years back. Yeah. My body, my choice. Unreal, huh?
If I know those 5 things, I can make a good decision. That's essentially the elements of informed consent. Now, the only problem we got is there might be a time when you can't tell people. Do you have a medical power of attorney?
At the present time I do, but I didn't.
You didn't back then?
Back in Louisiana, yeah, I should have, but I didn't have it.
The medical power of attorney form is the most important thing that you need. Okay,
Yes.
so you have somebody that you trust to speak your voice.
Mm-hmm.
If you didn't wake up and you had to go through all that again, have you ever thought about what you want to do?
Yes, I would definitely.
What I really recommend to sons and daughters, wives, relatives, is whatever question you feel uncomfortable asking, that's the one you probably want to ask. Okay. Oh, I don't want to get mom upset. Mom's dying. She is already upset. She needs to have someone to talk to. Okay. Oh, but I don't want to get my children upset. No, the truth is what people need. So talk early, talk often, talk frequently. If I was king of the world, what I'd have happen, let's say you're at a family reunion, and you go, hey Tom, are you still going down to Myrtle Beach to that condo in September? Hey Grandma, you still don't want that respirator if you can't be fixed? Just put it out there and make it part of the conversation. It would help demystify it. Okay. End of life things are scary. We don't know what it's all about. And that's okay. That's okay.
I don't know if you know what your wishes are at this time. If you don't, the main thing is that we have the medical power of attorney, and the person that you named would be able to make that decision. And we could refer to medical power of attorney, and they can make that decision for you. But I would suggest that you talk to them and let them know what your wishes are.
Brenda Young is patient advocate at Thomas Memorial Hospital and routinely discusses advance directives with patients.
You know, nobody's going to be mad at you if you refuse treatment or you accept treatment, and, it's your body, you take charge of it. Or if you're the medical power of attorney, that's why you were appointed medical power of attorney, to represent your the person that has appointed you.
The hot pink form that Young reviews with a patient is the physician's order for the scope of treatment, known as the POST form, an innovation among advanced directives.
We're in the top 3 states in terms of having developed this form, and it's clearly working very well. If the doctor says to him or herself, I wouldn't be surprised if this patient died in the next year, then a post form should be completed, because that then is the doctor sitting down with the patient, or if the patient can't make decisions, with the family and saying, are we doing CPR or not? And the doctor should inform them about the likelihood and benefit of CPR. Are we doing breathing machines in the intensive care unit, or are we going to do something that's not quite so traumatic? Are we just going to admit them to the hospital and do heart monitoring and oxygen and antibiotics, keep them comfortable, but not put a tube down their throat and put them on a breathing machine and tie them down, because they're going to not like that tube in their throat and try and pull it out, and so they're in restraints, which is typical.
I mean, like this guy's talking mad truth, right? This is just what happens, right? If you get CPR, right? It's a violent act. So if you already have pre-existing conditions, pain conditions, who knows, right? If you're already or if you're older, the last thing you want, well, I'm not going to say that. Let me strike that from the record. The last thing I would want is to be have my rib cage broken and brought back to life and have to deal with that, right? mean, that's just my opinion. It's a real, like, most people are like, we'll see it on TV or in the movies, and it's like, oh yeah, they're back to life. They don't show what happens after that. Like, or a lot of people don't know that, like, ribs are broken. Like, it's a really, really intense process that harms the body tremendously. Now, if you're young, you're athletic, or like you're maybe middle-aged, you're okay. I mean, that's different. But once you kind of get into your older years, it's something this is where all this decision making comes into play. And like, if you're dealing with a terminal diagnosis or not having directives set up in advance, like, these are the things you can end up coming back, because if there's no directive, then they're going to only do one thing and one thing only, and that's bring you back. And if you come back, there's going to be some rehab time just for you to get out of the woods and get out of the hospital.
Fortunately for an intensive care unit.
And out of probably physical therapy. Maybe surgeries. I don't know. It obviously it would vary depending on what you experience.
So the post form is very helpful for patients who are clearly, or the doctors think, in the last year of life.
Moss says the Do Not Resuscitate card is still in use, but it's not as comprehensive as the new post form. In fact, twice as many post forms are now being filled out compared to the DNR cards. The last tool physicians have comes from the West Virginia Healthcare Decisions Act of 2002. It allows a doctor to appoint a family member as a healthcare surrogate if the patient has no medical power of attorney and did not complete other advance directives.
Is there any change in her condition?
Not really.
When it comes to making those end-of-life decisions, medical providers say society often has unrealistic expectations of heroic measures, like CPR, breathing machines.
Let's get real, right? No. Society has been trained for unrealistic expectations. Trained. Let's get real. Humanity has been around a long time. The Western ideology of death is, as David Rollman said earlier, barbaric. Absolutely barbaric. Okay? Like, so this type of bullshit, no. People have been programmed to feel a certain way about death and revival, and those unrealistic expectations have created this insanity through propaganda, through indoctrination, through movies, through TV, through textbooks, and all this stuff, right? And then, of course, the whole inherent fear of death, right? It's so different when you start to look outside the Western ideology of like death. It's just so different than what we experience here or what people are led to believe here. It's the complete opposite. And yet, what's funny is our supposed country, at least in the U.S., hasn't been around as long, and yet there are ancient cultures who have had the same tried, trusted, true methods on how to approach death for, a long time. Long time. So just think about that. Are they wrong? Or is the West wrong? Is celebrating someone's life wrong? Or should we be, falling over the casket with our pearls clutched, right? And crying endlessly? Or should we be celebrating their life? Of course we're going to cry too, right? But it's how everything is like magnified with death. It's the unspeakable. Just like the unspeakable of when parents lose children, right? Like, that's another area that like is like one of those areas like, oh, no, be quiet. Let's not talk about it. Shh, shh, shh. You know what I'm saying? It's whacked. It's whacked. And like you see other cultures just, they celebrate. They appreciate what was, what they got to experience with them. And it's just not like that here. And there's a whole industry behind that sick and twisted and demented grieving process. It's a marketing tool. Again, this is my opinion. Take it for what it's worth. But in my opinion, that's what it is. It's fucked up. Just saying.
Medical providers say society often has unrealistic expectations of heroic measures, like CPR, breathing machines, and feeding tubes.
We love.
You know, my grandfather was on a feeding tube. It was horrible to watch. Strong Italian guy, loved his food. World War II veteran. He was reduced to a feeding tube. It was just, and he was alive for a while too. It was heartbreaking to watch. And I'm not even going to get into the shit my grandmother put him through. I mean, it just sick. But anyways, he didn't last long after that, but long enough, right? But I mean, like, Christ, you're not even going to be able to enjoy food or anything like that on your way out. Going to be hooked up to feeding tubes and all that. Come on. What's left? What's left?
Is there any change in her condition?
Not really.
When it comes to making those end-of-life decisions, medical providers say society often has unrealistic expectations of heroic measures, like CPR, breathing machines, and feeding tubes.
We love medical shows. I mean, just as a nation, we think they are great and they're so super interesting, and they're often so far from the truth.
See?
I wish Dr. House was at every hospital, and I wish that ER situations went as well as they did when ER was on. But I think we do get a false sense that if my doctor does the CPR and does the chest compressions and gives me all this medicine and puts a tube down my throat, I'm going to come out of it and I'm going to be 100% normal and everything's going to be okay. And that's not the case.
We probably have more research on CPR and when it works and when it doesn't work than probably any other healthcare procedure or treatment. We know, for example, when somebody's having a heart attack, they're having their first heart attack and they've previously been healthy, that person has a 50-50 chance of benefiting from CPR and leaving the hospital and doing pretty well. Or if somebody has a drug overdose, they've overdosed on a drug and they're in the emergency department and they stop breathing, they have a 25 to 50% chance of being fully recovered and receiving further treatment, but CPR is likely to work in that situation. Or if somebody has their heart stops in the operating room, again, 70-80% chance that they're going to do well with the CPR and that they're going to be able to carry on with their life. On the other hand, if you take all people who have their heart stops in the hospital and they receive CPR, only 1 in 6 survive to leave the hospital.
That's a crazy number, huh? 1 in 6 survive to leave the hospital. Think about that.
All people who have their heart stops in the hospital and they receive CPR, only 1 in 6 survive to leave the hospital.
The majority of people who arrest have an underlying or multiple underlying issues that, because of the lack of oxygen, because of the lack of blood flow, because of the breaking of the bones, it just compounds an issue a lot of the time. And the general public, were not exposed to what happens during a resuscitatory effort. And It's a very difficult thing for a person's body to go through. And especially when you're an elderly and frail and you don't have a lot of muscle mass, you have thin bones, you already don't have a lot of blood flow to your brain. You know, the sequelae or what comes afterwards is just sometimes worse than what we started with.
If there's nothing in writing that says don't do the heroic things such as CPR, life support, and if, say, a mother has a terminal illness such as pancreatic cancer, maybe it's spread to the liver, a feeding tube is not going to change the outcome. A life support is not going to change that outcome.
Nope.
Or if it's lung cancer and there is no further treatment, you place someone on life support, does it change the fact that they have the terminal illness? No. A lot of times it's the terminal illness that causes them not to be able to breathe or not to be able to eat. So you have to look at, you know, is this what they would want? I mean, you know, we can offer a lot of things and we can do a lot of things to people, but are we really doing it for them?
I'm just going to listen.
Look at the poor guy.
Listen.
Or woman, I don't even know.
We're supposed to be a benefit and do no harm. That's part of the Hippocratic Oath. And when we have this patient who's very...
Isn't it crazy that it's called the Hippocratic Oath? And then that always has blown my mind. Hippocratic Oath, and then you have hypocrite in it. You this shit up. It's right in the name. It's right in the name.
We're supposed to be a benefit and do no harm. That's part of the Hippocratic Oath. And when we
Just
have this
unreal.
patient who's very sick with widespread cancer, who's not responding to chemotherapy, who's in the intensive
poor
care
guy.
unit because their disease has gotten worse and worse, and nobody's had a discussion about, well, if it got that bad, would you want to be on life support? And so we end up coming in and we can say, you know, the oncologists have told us they don't have anything else to offer that's going to stop the cancer, and the cancer has now caused your lungs to fail, and you're, you know, or we'll say this to the family, and your loved one is in shock on a breathing machine because of the cancer. We can be fairly certain that keeping the patient comfortable is the best course of action at that point.
I'm letting him make that decision, what he wants to go through.
Okay. All right. So did you hear that? Sort of, you know how the buck stops here.
Yes.
So she's going to let you decide if you want to try more chemotherapy or not. When you took it in 2003, it worked well.
Yes.
But you're not quite as good as you were in 2003, are you? Not quite as strong. You've had, what, some heart attacks and some heart trouble along the way, right?
Strokes.
And some strokes. Okay.
You had said that if he goes to the skilled nursing unit and he was not, you know, he wasn't, you know, doing well with physical therapy and those things, if he was declining rather than getting stronger, you still thought about taking him home with hospice at that point too.
Right.
Okay.
The work at the Center for End-of-Life Care is based on the medical specialty of palliative care. Moss says that's appropriate when a cure is no longer likely.
We're not giving up on the patient at all. We're being very aggressive, if you will, intentional in our treatment. It's just that the goal of our treatment has changed from doing as much as we can to cure the patient to doing as much as we can to be sure that the patient is comfortable. Okay. And
See, it's like he's kind of talking like this to, you know, that's what it's about, right? Making the patient comfortable. So this is where I just want to, like, talk, right? Where things get a little dicey, in my opinion. And this is, again, my opinion, okay? I'm sure a number of you have heard me talk over the years about being completely drugged out of your mind on your way out. I do not advise it. I don't think it's a good thing to do. I think we want, there's nothing wrong with obviously taking the doctor's orders, because I have to say that, right? And doing and still feeling comfortable, right? Like, but you don't need to be if you need to be completely zoned out on your way out, I think the transition process may, and this is a big may, it's just, it doesn't seem like a good idea because you're foggy, right? You're like, and sometimes if you're setting yourself up to hang on and hang on and hang on, then what ends up happening is this is the only route, like where he talks about how we're trying to make you comfortable, and comfortable means very high doses of narcotics. That may sound fun, but at the same time, when you're leaving here, I don't think it's a good idea. I think we may become more susceptible to interference and all that stuff. It's just with everything I've learned and experienced, you just got to be careful. Okay? So trying to find that in between line where you're comfortable but not zoned out. And these are directives that I think should be put forth in advance and ironclad in whatever way possible. All right? But like if you're stretching things out to the max, then the way it works here in the West is that they, I'm just going to be honest, what they do is they OD you. That's the truth of what happens. They increase it and increase it and increase it to the point where you basically OD and flatline. That is what happens. They don't tell you that necessarily, or they do in some, different way where you're not thinking that's what's going to happen, but that's what they do. So what is that telling us? It's telling us that basically they're giving us a hot dose on the way out to the point where our heart stops. That's not. So you're going to be high as shit on the way out, and your clarity is going to be off, Does that, like, I think, in my opinion, like, if you know you're leaving, remember, it's your last time. It's your last time. It's not going to go on much longer at this point. But don't get to the point where you're incapable of anything, right? Of being able to communicate or being able to open your eyes, or you're so like zoned out that you can't think straight, right? Like, that's way different. So that's, again, my opinion. It's not medical advice. It's just what I feel spiritually with our intention for sovereignty, liberation, non-interference. Right? That's all. I don't think being high as a kite on the way out is a good idea. I just don't. It just, with everything you see, with how the body can become possessed with all sorts of high dose narcotics, it's just not a good idea. And this is just coming at a perspective spiritually and about liberation. That's all. But I think it's a really, really, really important thing to consider and think about. That's all. Okay?
We're being very aggressive, if you will, intentional in our treatment. It's just that the goal of our treatment has changed from doing as much as we can to cure the patient to doing as much as we can to be sure that the patient is comfortable, okay, and has as good a quality of life as we can provide for the patient. So palliative care is working with the patient and the family to identify their wishes, to treat their pain, to treat their symptoms, and to try and ensure that the patient has the type of treatment that the patient wants. So it's a very positive thing. Sometimes doctors think, oh, we won't consult palliative care, that's giving up. Well, it's not giving up, it's getting good communication to try and figure out what would the patient want at this stage in their life with their condition.
It's nobody's business that we have anything to hide. There you go. You got all your pills? You still taking?
Yes, sir, I am.
Dr. Foster is director of palliative care at Thomas Memorial, one of about 10 palliative care teams located in hospitals throughout the state. His entry into palliative care followed his father's diagnosis of cancer.
In my medical training, I had zero amount of what to do with a dying patient. Matter of fact, I was taught that the death of my patient was my failure. So,
the death of my patient was my failure. This is what it takes. He experienced his father's death. And remember, his training said, oh, well, you're a failure. You lost your patient. Broken leg. This isn't a broken shoulder or a fracture. This is death, which we all come here, we're born, and we die. Just a fact of life inside the Matrix, Loosh Farm, right? But this poor guy, it took a gargantuan event for him to come face to face with this in his own profession. Think about everything he just said. I'm going to replay it because it's so important.
Their teams located in hospitals throughout the state. His entry into palliative care followed his father's diagnosis of cancer.
In my medical training, I had zero amount of what to do with a dying patient. Matter of fact, I was taught that the death of my patient was my failure.
See his eyes? They're glassy. He's tearing up, basically, right? Because he realizes how hoodwinked he was to not provide probably who knows how many patients prior to his father the reasonable expectation of death. That's all. It's not controversial. It's not ridiculous or out of hand. It's based on his experience and his training. I mean, come on. Death is a fact of life. And that's it. That's simple. Nothing to... That's it. It's so simple.
Zero amount of what to do with a dying patient. Matter of fact, I was taught that the death of my patient was my failure. So my daddy was kind of a pragmatic type of fellow. He's sitting on the side of his bed, and he goes, okay, what's wrong with me? I can't tell my daddy's going to die. I don't know how to do this. So I said, Daddy, you're about as sick as you're ever going to be. And he goes, what in the heck does that mean? I said, you're eating up with pancreas cancer and it's going to kill you. When he watched his back arch, I said, I got to come up with a different approach. Very simply, what I decided to do was tell him the truth in words he understands, put my feelings aside, because he's the one with the problem, and support him. Any other questions for me?
That's it, Doc. It's been great to see you again.
Say hi to your wife. So with palliative care, what we're trying to do is improve quality and let the person kind of direct how much quantity they want.
And just because you get a palliative care consult doesn't mean that you're stopping everything. Oftentimes, sometimes we'll determine, no, the patient would want to continue, or we may put in place a time-limited trial of treatment. So we may keep on going for a while, and then if the patient benefits, that's great. We have cases that we sign off of all the time where we sat down with the family, we said, let's try it, let's give it a period of time, but if it's not working, then we'll stop, and it worked, and that's great, and we're all happy. But then there are many cases where we try it and clearly mom's getting worse and mom's suffering and everybody can see it. And then we say, let's just make our main goal now keeping her comfortable.
The goal is to get the patient where they want to be. I would say 1 minute is a lifetime for somebody that's dying, or an hour. You know, we take it for granted, but if it's your last moments of life, you know, you want to be where you want to be, and we try to honor that.
It gives you an opportunity to recognize that I'm dying, I'm preparing for death. The majority of us want to be happy, and the majority of people, when you ask them, they know how they want that last bit of their life to be.
Exactly. And that's what you'll find in the research too. The majority know how they want to spend their last days, weeks, months, hours, especially last days and weeks, right? They know. And a lot of times there's things that, or if there is an unresolved issues, it's just about family, right? Which, goes to an important next point that may or may not be controversial, but some of you have heard me talk about it before. If something like this were to happen to me, I would start working on it right away, saying my goodbyes right away. And that's why at the beginning of the stream, I was talking about how, a lot of times people hang around longer than they should. They suffer longer than they should because of unresolved issues in their life. Maybe they're estranged from their parents, or they're estranged from their siblings, or something, right? Or maybe they did wrong to somebody years and years and years ago, and it's like just been eating them away. All sorts of scenarios, right? I mean, there was that classic case I've talked about a number of times with the guy in Vietnam who, they have a certain way that I'm not some well-informed military guy and all the lingo and stuff like that, but in short, what he was saying was, my job was to cover my friend, platoon mate, in front of me. And he got distracted, right? And they were in the jungle, and his buddy ended up getting killed. There was an ambush, but he blamed himself for decades because he wasn't covering his buddy. And so it ate him alive. And so on his deathbed, this is a really, really important example to take away from this stream. So on his deathbed, he was just up in arms about it, right? He was trying to resolve his family. He was trying to resolve his illness, trying to just come to terms with everything. But the one thing that kept eating away was the buddy that he wasn't covering his back in Vietnam when he was supposed to. And it resulted in his death. And well, you know what ended up happening? The Matrix delivered his buddy to him on his deathbed. All is forgiven. Everything's fine. And guess who ended up taking him to the light and down the tunnel? The buddy you shot. Think about that. Is that really the buddy? Was that really the platoon mate? At the end, and this is the guy lived a while. I don't know what it was, 50, 60 years later. I know he lived pretty old. Let's just say 40 years. Let's be conservative, right? And this is the exit. This is who, and then he died. He told the nurse, or I think it was the nurse or the doctor or the family or a combination of the three, that he could go now. He that was the closure that he needed in order to leave the Matrix. and the buddy took him to the light. I mean, I don't know about you, but I'm not necessarily buying that that was actually the buddy. I'm sorry. I'm just not. I've said this multiple times on this channel, and you know, other researchers, some agree, some don't. That's fine. But I am of the belief that a lot of times, if not all of the time, I'm not, and that's stretching it, right? Saying all of the time, but I think quite often, bordering on possibly 100%, that those who we feel or see or hear and our deathbed visions and visitations are not necessarily who they claim to be. I also feel that way about near-death experiences. Am I 100% on that? No, I'm not. But I lean heavily towards it. You have to think about it, right? Like in the case of the guy who lost his platoon mate, he wasn't covering his back, and unfortunately the guy died, right? There was a huge period of time that went by before he died. Like 40 years or something like that. Did the other guy really not reincarnate in that period? It's possible. I'm not saying it isn't, because the data definitely leaves it open. But are we to believe that every single near-death experience, every deathbed vision and visitation, that every single time everyone is dealing with who they think they're dealing with, and it just so happens to be really, really, really important individuals in their life? I have a hard time buying that. So, near-death experience, deathbed visions, visitations, end-of-life experiences, all that stuff, I am not sold at all that that's who they're dealing with. And you know what the bottom line is? I don't know. You don't know. So why not err on the side of caution, right? That's the important part, is we can sit here together and, if we're being honest with ourselves, say, I don't know. It's okay to say I don't know. And that's like really important on this channel. I say that all the time. If I don't know, I don't know. If I lean heavily in a certain direction, like with this situation, everything I just talked about, I'll tell you. But am I going to say, oh, it's conclusive and all that? No, I'm not. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know. But that's a problem, right? The fact that we are saying, I don't know for sure. Yeah, I'm leaning towards it all being one big fat deception. But the fact that I don't know is out there is a problem enough to warrant full sovereign intention for liberation. Non-interference. That's it. Right? And you know what? If everything is as advertised, I've said this many times, everything is advertised in this matrix, well, you know what? They can wait. If everything's about love and all this stuff and spiritual growth, you know what? They can wait. They don't need my immediate reaction. They don't need your immediate reaction to go with them down the tunnel to the life review and end up back in this whole freaking cycle again. That's the problem with this place, is it's filled with I don't knows. Filled with it to the brim. So it's okay to say that. But it's also okay to take your destiny in your own hands and do what you need to do for you. And if this place is all it's cracked up to be, if this whole thing is just, one big never-ending shit show, and we fall back into it, which we're not. But you know what I'm saying, right? It's just, it's not. It's just not. There's no way I can ever be convinced that this is, the astral link to here and the overarching matrix construct and whatever material, physical realities are are linked to this place is all that there is. I do not believe that. It makes no sense for it to be that limited when we are, in fact, creator beings with the ability to use our intention to make decisions on our own. Use that intention to our own benefit, which is sovereignty, non-interference, liberation. That's it. Very simple process. And I would say I'm like about 99% certain when we leave here and we apply that method, we're like, so much is going to come back to us. We're going to be like, oh my God, I was worrying like such a jackass when I was going through all this. Yeah, it was a nightmare, but oh my God, everything's coming back to me. Now I remember all this stuff. You know, everything's just going to probably come flying back. We're just going to know. You got to remember, we're eternal beings. Who knows how many rodeos we've been through, how much awareness we've had of so many things. Who knows what we've done in quote unquote the multiverse, right? The good stuff, the bad stuff, the inner knowing, right? The eternal nature of all of us. These are things that are just going to come back to us. But we have to allow that process to happen on our own terms. And that's why to the day I'm out of here and beyond, it's non-interference, sovereignty, liberation. I don't see any other path. I don't see going down the tunnel and saying, hey, stop, let's hold up here. Let's just turn it around and I'm going to go to 4D or 5D. No. I 4D and 5D has inherent limitations built into the very intention itself, which is an earth-learned lesson or earth-learned indoctrination. That's why you don't hear me talk about that stuff. I've always tried to look at it through the lens of, we don't know everything. We have to be honest with ourselves that we don't and cannot know everything because of the inherent nature of this insane asylum. But once the shackles are released and true liberation occurs and we are outside of this insane asylum and its adjacent insane asylums, it'll probably just all come back to us, guys. So just really give that some consideration. I think entertaining that, you have to come back here to save others and you have to play this big role to play hero and all that stuff. Look, nobody wants this place stopped and whatever kind of parasitic overlays and extensions that are linked to this whole shit show to stop more than me. It's just horrible, right? Like the stuff that goes on here. And so if I felt that there was like a way, I'd say, hey, maybe we can do it. But you know what? You know what I realized? And you have to think about it from a logical perspective. What happens here, guys? This place customizes an experience for us at death. So if you're running this insane asylum, this Loosh Farm insane asylum, then what are you going to do? Oh my God, you feel like you can be Rambo of the astral and take down the earth realm. Well, you know what? They're gonna allow that feeling, that experience, that intention, that everything. They're gonna allow that to happen so that you feel that that's a real thing. And guess what? You end up getting lost in the sauce once again. And then before you know it, you know, you realize, oh my, or maybe you probably don't realize that you're fighting imaginary etheric bullshit. You're fighting holograms, right? And you have this whole big thing inside you that, oh, I'm doing good. Meanwhile, you're just feeding right back into the system. That's why I don't feel there's any... It's not my problem. I hate to say it. It's not your problem. And one thing I've talked about too is like, you know, Gnosticism, Buddhism, Hinduism, all that, like this, like the idea, the general idea of the soul trap is not new. It's under different terminology, but it's not new by any means. It's just, there's just really not anything out there about taking the reins through your eternal creator being self in a sovereign way. That's the difference. And that's what I talk about. So, and that's what I think we all should do. And why? Because we don't know. It leads back to the same thing. So, given the fact that there is Gnosticism, there's Buddhism, there's Hinduism, and like it's the same concept, right? Just with its own kind of flair. Its own flair of truth, mind you. It just leaves us kind of like at the finish line where it's providing a lot, and then it kicks you on the nuts and pulls you back, right? That's why. So if that whole of those belief systems have not been able to take care of this problem already, what makes you think that we're going to be able to do that? You have to remember that everyone's going to be making their own decisions. And yes, it's under the guise of the memory wipe and who knows what agreements prior to coming here, right? But the problem is the cycle will continue. And who are we to necessarily interfere in others? And I think that goes to some sort of natural law, maybe. I mean, again, I am not 100% on anything, but these are just, I'm just kind of throwing these things out there to consider. So anyways, I'll shut up and I'm going to maybe let a little bit of this play out, and then I do have to take a brief break. Okay, guys?
The majority of us want to be happy. And the majority of people, when you ask them, they know how they want that last bit of their life to be. And that's all part of palliative care, and then helping support their wishes.
So at this point, we're sort of trying to figure out, where do we go from here? What would he want? Okay.
He wants to go home.
He wants to go home. Okay. Now, I think you understand and he understands that at this point, we're not going to get him off the breathing machine. He's going to need to be on it at least a part of the time, right? That was obvious, because last weekend they tried to have him go all day without the breathing machine, and he got into trouble.
Yeah.
So you would like to take him home on a breathing machine, is that right?
Yeah.
On a breathing machine. And then it's a matter of working with your insurance to see if that can happen.
Right.
Now,
Wow, can you
previously,
believe
they've
that?
not been very receptive to that, have they?
Oh. Okay, so if you want to go home on a breathing machine, it's up to the insurance. Can you believe this fucking horse shit? I'm sorry, excuse my language, but it's just got to be said. If you're not mad at hearing that, I don't know what, just leave. Well, just here.
That was obvious, because last weekend they
Think about how
tried to
messed
have him
up
go all
this
day
is.
without the breathing machine, and he got into trouble.
Yeah.
So you would like to take him home on a breathing machine, is that right?
Yeah.
On a breathing machine. And then it's a matter of working with your insurance to see if that can happen.
Right.
Now, previously, they've not been very receptive to that, have they?
No.
Okay. But from
No, they haven't been receptive to that previously, you know, just so you know. So here he's going to have to sit in this hospital maybe instead, but he'll be able to be on a breathing machine and we'll be able to rack up the insurance, you know, the hospital will be able to rack up that insurance for, you know, the X amount of days available on the plan. And then, yeah, we'll just unplug him. We're not going to send him home. It's see this insane? It's just insane that this is even a thing. It's like, give the man his dignity. If he wants to go home and die in a breathing machine, let him. Let him. Crazy. Absolute insanity. This is the Western healthcare insurance bullshit.
they've not been very receptive to that, have they?
No.
Okay. But from what I understand, and Heidi, maybe you can help us with this, you've looked into the possibility of if even maybe hospice could help him go home on the breathing machine. Is that right?
Well, we haven't checked with the agencies, but Teresa and I have talked about that could possibly be a route.
Okay.
When we were looking at all our options. Yeah.
And you understand that hospice means that somebody on average has about 6 months to live. That the prognosis is not good. Now that doesn't mean you might not get better than that, okay? 20% of people who go on hospice come off hospice because they've gotten better, okay? But what it would do for Teresa is it would provide a nurse on call to come into the home to check you, somebody you could call if you were concerned about how he's doing. Plus they'd provide hospital bed and they'd provide the supplies and the equipment and you know what I mean, so it would make your life much easier.
Yeah.
We also made the decision that if things got so bad that if despite being on the breathing machine, your heart were to stop, you would want us just to keep you comfortable at that point, right?
Right.
And we made that decision because we knew if it got that bad, CPR wouldn't help. Shocking his heart wouldn't. We're already breathing for him, right?
You're right, yeah.
That's right. Okay. What questions do you have about where we are right now?
Just the questions is, can I handle him at home? Can he be okay with me?
Sure.
Handling him at home?
Right.
Because I don't want to do anything to hurt him.
Yes. So what we're going to need to do is look and work with your insurance company and we'll try and find a hospice and see what services are available, okay? That's what we're going to have to try and do is put a plan in place so that it doesn't fall only on your shoulders.
Right.
Okay? So Denley, is that plan, I know you can't talk because you've got that thing, in your throat, but does that sound good to try and get you home? Yeah. Okay, that's what you want. Okay. Good.
Sometimes, in your journey in life, even when you drove to our hospital, you took the best possible route. You did not walk. You did not go.
Okay, so just think about this, guys. This guy, think about what the doctor said. I know you can't talk right now because you got the breathing tube in you, but this is what you want to do. He's like, yes. One of the things you'll find in ELEs, end-of-life experiences, deathbed visions, visitations, and just overall kind of going in the hospice direction, is we want to please our loved ones. This guy wants to please his wife. Now, is this 100% what's happening here? I don't know. I'm not in his head. I don't know. But it's a reality, right? You might want to hang on for them. And then what happens is when you're hanging on for them, your condition doesn't get better. It gets worse and worse and worse and worse, and to the point where you're non-responsive. And it's like, what's good about that, right? So this is why kind of thinking about this stuff in advance is really advised, and being open and honest, so that like if something like this were to occur, a year from now, 5 years, 10 years, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, who knows how many years from now, that at least everyone is kind of already informed, right? They've made peace with that decision to some extent, right? Obviously, there's no peace being made inside someone's head like immediately when, or even thereafter when someone they love has been given a terminal diagnosis, right? That's just the way it is. But by putting it out there, letting everyone know, letting those important in your life know, it's okay. Like the directive is there, and then making it legally binding is also important, because then the process is set in stone that your wishes are fulfilled and held true. That's all. It's a win-win for everybody. In the best way possible. You know? You're letting them know, and you're also taking control at the same time. For them to, the one or two individuals that you trust the most to make the best decision for you when that time comes. If that time comes. At some point it will. Who knows? Not necessarily terminal, but, who knows? You get what I'm saying.
I know you can't talk because you've got that thing, in your throat, but does that sound good to try and get you home? Yeah. Okay, that's what you want. Okay, good.
Sometimes, in your journey in life, even when you drove to our hospital, you took the best possible route. You did not walk, you did not go through the woods or, off some roads. You probably took the interstate in the best route. So sometimes in life, it's a destiny, it's a journey, and it depends on how we get you there. We can continue to do a lot of things, a lot of tests, a lot of needle sticks, but if we know the end result, we're still going to end up, our demise is going to still be the same, or the destiny is still going to be the same, then, you might not elect to go through all these backwoods to get there. So, the journey could be a lot smoother.
The cost of end-of-life care and intensive care
Like that,
units
right?
like this.
The journey can be a lot smoother. The journey can be a lot smoother. That's a good affirmation right there for death. The journey can be a lot smoother.
The cost of end-of-life care and intensive care units like this one at Ruby Memorial Hospital in Morgantown can be staggering. For treatment many healthcare providers say is often unwarranted, painful, even inappropriate. Defensive medicine, ordering procedures that may not be strictly necessary, but done in fear of medical malpractice suits, adds to the skyrocketing healthcare expenditures. Providers believe this could be curbed with greater use of advanced directives. Medicare alone currently reports paying close to $67 billion a year on chronically ill patients in the last 24 months of life.
Something like half of that is spent in the last 2 months of life. We put lots of people on machines in intensive care units at the end of life, when if we would have had the conversation that I just described with you, 3/4 of those people most likely wouldn't be there. And so we could save millions and millions of dollars, billions probably. I like to say it's a win-win type of thing. The patient gets the treatment that he or she wants, and we don't spend all the money that we can't afford to be spending. The baby boomers are coming, okay? The demographics are against us, but yet we need to have the conversations so that we can stop using the intensive care unit as a surrogate for providing end-of-life care.
I've always read. My grandmother told me that Theoretically, everything that ever was ever wrote by a man's wrote down somewhere. So if you just read and read and read and read everything you can get your hands on, theoretically you'll know everything known to man. And it was an idea I could just never get away from.
Joe Phillips of Fayetteville chose to come to the Bowers Hospice House in Beckley while battling the final stages of pancreatic cancer.
I've got an NMR, no medication or resuscitation. I understand that most of the people that come here already have.
An NMR. No medication, no resuscitation. Take note. An NMR. Something to consider.
An NMR, no medication or resuscitation. I understand that most of the people that come here already have one. It's just something I would advise. With me, it's a whole quality of life issue.
Yep.
If you can't think and participate, then there's no real quality of life.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's like
It's
we were
always
talking
hard.
about before. It's going to end anyways, right? You're just prolonging the inevitable for something that's going to occur regardless, which is bodily death. And so if you're going to be drugged up and comatose as a result of that, it's your last time anyways. Why allow yourself to be in an altered state where you may be suggestible? You get what I'm saying, guys? I'm really trying to hammer that point home. Again, this is my opinion. All this stuff that I talked about tonight's my opinion, but I feel pretty strongly about it, very strongly about it. Because this is how I'm going to, and you know, if I were to be faced with a terminal diagnosis, this is what I'm going to do. I want to be comfortable. You know, maybe I'm not saying sit there and be in tremendous pain or anything like that, but you know, maybe you got to deal with a little bit of pain to stay coherent. See, like that's a big difference between just allowing them to increase the dose every day to the point where you're, sleeping, 20 hours of the day and you're awake, but, all groggy for the 4 that you're up, just to drink some water and eat some food or have food administered or have, saline administered. It's just like, really? You're at the end anyways. It's your last time. Don't allow yourself to be clouded, Really, really just trying to convey the importance of that point.
It's always a hard decision. You're being faced with something that you're just not geared to think about. And that makes it very personal.
The staff here told me that you were eager to talk to us. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, this is a really nice place, I usually wind up saying for what it is because it is a terminal care facility. You don't normally come to a place like this expecting to walk out. So, you got to sort of say that it, for what it is. But it is a really nice place. And they take good care of you here. You've got the birds and everything out here. There's geese that fly over all the time. And you've got just the peace and solitude, to get yourself right and make sure that you're ready for what you came here for.
Are you at peace, Joe?
I'm really don't think you get that till You know, it's just like really thrust on you. I'm as close as I can come, I think. I work on it some every day.
Yeah, it's like, I think that's a genuine response. I really do. Jack says, Bracer Jack says, sorry to say, but humans also bear some responsibility. It is one thing to see how things are. It is another to see how things are and still choose to bring another life into true sin. Well, the thing is most people, if they're having a child, Jack, don't know, you know? Like, they're just clouded by, the propaganda system. I just don't feel that's the thing, you know? So it's, yeah. And there's something to also be said. Like, I've talked to, parents many times and said, you're also kind of in an amazing position where if you bring life into this world, you can teach them the truth and help them in their liberation. So it really, because what's going to happen is if you're in the soul group, and you're supposed to reincarnate with, let's say, Mama who's already on Earth and Dada who's already on Earth, but they see through this realm for what it is. Now, what happens is if they don't have that child, and this is crazy thinking, it really is, but just bear with me. If they don't have that child, or if maybe they had the child, shortly after maybe they realize that or the truth of the realm, then you can be in a position where if they're not going to have the child, that they end up in reincarnating inside the soul group, but someone else, a different mother. And that family doesn't know the truth, right? About what goes on here. And so in turn, they're going to likely be reincarnating who knows how many more times until they either realize it themselves or are taught by somebody who is aware of it. And remember, like, it also depends on if the individual being born is receptive in the first place. There's so many ways to fall into the sensory trap. It's not even funny, especially today. But it's a really interesting thought process, like to look at it that way, And so yeah, I just throw that out there. Like, I've encouraged parents who have children to, start to, and there's even, I started working on a video and I've yet to put it out. I have continued to make the outline over, I don't know, almost, it's got to be close to a year now, maybe 9 months, something, about how parents who have children and they're already aware of the soul trap, how they can introduce it to them in a way that isn't necessarily scary or filled with fear, right? Like, that's the last thing you want to do is instill fear. You want to instill gnosis through compassion and empathy, and let them know, hey, everything's going to be okay, but this is the situation, and this is kind of what's going on here, and you can, when you're older, you can kind of see it through this way and that way, and you can go down these roads, and mom and dad are going to try and help you find a way to get through it, right? But your parents are also going to experience those who may be maybe new to the system, right? They're just like, look, they're just in the sensory experience. So no matter who they reincarnated with within that soul group, it's not going to matter, right? At the end of the day, it's up to us as individuals. But what a what's a better way than to be born here with parents who understand what's going on, and to be taught that and have safeguards applied to their child while growing up so that they can't or hopefully won't fall into, you know, the sensory trap. You know what I'm saying? It's just it's such a it blows my mind just thinking about it, because there could be a lot of good there. But at the end of the day, it takes the individual to process that information. And I think about what I believed growing up, and my resentment towards like religion and authority and all that stuff. Like all that like everything was kind of baked into the cake for like, it was just like within me to fight against all that bullshit, right? I hated school, right? School was a prison to me, like going in and out every day and just monotonous, just drilling all this monotonous bullshit into my head all the time. But that was kind of just me from a young age. I didn't know, obviously. I didn't know how I was gonna be looking at this place, a few decades down the road. It just, like, I came out defensive and fighting authority. Like things trying to rule over me, I hated it. Things trying to tell me what to do and put their, stomp their boot on my head. Like, I just hated it. And I hate it to this day. And it's just never stopped. I just didn't realize it back then. So, but like, it's like this was part of me and my growing process to get here today, to see through the illusion that is this insane asylum. So I think any child who's born into a family that sees that has got a much, much better chance than almost anyone. They're born into it, where they're born questioning, and maybe, just maybe, that will stick and provide them a path to liberation. I don't know. Really wild to think about. So, if you're a parent, this is the good possibility to all this. Who knows what you all realized before? Doesn't matter, when the parent was born or the child was born. It just, who knows, right? Like, who knows what you realized in past lifetimes? Maybe you deep within you, you knew something was wrong. Maybe it was meant to be that you had that child and, reincarnated together, even if it's years apart, right? In an effort to help liberate one another. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily all that common. I mean, it's not common that, it's like we are in such a small minority with how we look at this place in general that, it's hard to even sometimes even think that big. But the molding is there, right? It's possible to share this knowledge and intuition and the data and all that stuff with someone you love. Maybe it's your child. I don't know.
This just has to be an incredibly hard
thing for you to see your mom go through this?
Well, I'm the one that told her and Dad,
You have both of your parents.
Yeah. And you never really think you're going to bury anybody in your family, much less your son or daughter. So that is, that's hard. But Mom and Dad are real close in the church. I'm not so much religious myself as I am spiritual, and it has helped them. And like I said, they're coping.
What do you focus on at this time?
Well, one of your guys was telling me it's a beautiful day. And I said, yeah, anytime you can get up and see the sun, it's a beautiful day. And doesn't really necessarily have to be sun out there. Because you know it's there to begin with. That makes it a nice day.
Hospice of Southern West Virginia serves Raleigh, Wyoming, Summers, and Fayette counties. Its in-home program serves 500 families a year, and now it can care for up to a dozen individuals and their families at Bowers House, its new inpatient facility.
When we meet with families who have a loved one that needs our care, we tell them that we don't do aggressive curative care, but we provide very aggressive comfort care. We take that very seriously. So we will do any medication regimen.
Okay, so comfort care, you're going to hear it here, like aggressive comfort care. The thing is you don't want to see your loved one suffering, right? Nobody wants to see that. Want everyone to be comfortable and free of suffering. So the common practice is to, again, drug them up, get them high, to the point where they're not necessarily feeling what's going on. Is that like I just don't think that's a good thing when it comes to liberating yourself. And when you're being totally zoned out that you can't make decisions or think for yourself properly, just doesn't sit right with me.
Who have a loved one that
Or
needs
if I'm
our
beating
care,
a horse.
we tell them that we don't do aggressive curative care, but we provide very aggressive comfort care. We take that very seriously. So we will do any medication regimen that is helpful to a patient. We administer oxygen. We can administer feedings as it is appropriate to do so. But from the palliative care and hospice approach, we feel we do a lot.
What financial responsibility does an individual have as they enter the hospice?
Well, for the hospice service, essentially there is none. We accept Medicare and West Virginia Medicaid payments, and then we also accept indigent patients. We're a nonprofit hospice, so we take into account that there will be people who have no means to pay, and we still provide care for them as well. So related to their end-of-life care, there will be no cost.
What about emotional, psychological care?
Right. Well, it can be very stressful for a person to come to terms with facing the end of their life. And so we provide some emotional support. We have a staff of social workers who can meet with patients and families. And basically what we do is just help them speak to each other, help them talk about things that maybe are a little difficult to talk about if they choose to go that route. We have pastoral care as well, because at the end of life, a lot of people review and they look at spiritual matters, and so we make sure that they have access to a pastor. We have several pastors in the community who volunteer to go out into the homes and to come here to this facility to meet with people. So we're providing an emotional, a spiritual support. We're helping caregivers vent some of their concerns and fears in facing losing a loved one. And then we'll also provide bereavement support For 13 months after a patient passes away, we'll follow their family for 13 months with bereavement support through phone calls, some literature that we mail to them regarding grief and what they may be experiencing. So once someone passes away, we don't forget about those people that cared about them the most.
My father was born in Raleigh County. My mom was born in Mingo County. But they met in college and were married, and both were school teachers for, I think, Dad 38 years and Mom 37 years.
Bob, you've told me that it wasn't too long ago that you lost your father.
Yes.
And so returning here has to be, with your mother, really very bittersweet, I would think.
Bittersweet is a very good way of putting it. Yeah, because the first time we weren't sure what to expect. But the second time, I knew all the people. I knew just what the process was going to be. And it makes it easier in a sense, but it's still a great loss.
They make it very clear to us what's going to happen next and next and next. And the direction they've given us and the care has just been absolutely awesome. So it kind of takes the burden off the family, knowing that you have that much support and people who know what they're doing and making it the best they can make it for your loved one. It's comforting to know that those services are available. There are things that we couldn't do at home, no matter how hard we tried. We could not care for the people like they do here.
The medical power of attorney, the living will, any of those, were those decisions that had been made and talked about?
Yes, all of our families talked about that. And all of us have opted for, no special measures or no resuscitation and organ donors. But I think that's a very important or critical decision for a family, because there would be a great deal of uncertainty if you had to make some certain choices. If you had to decide whether to give transfusions or feeding tubes, other choices, if you didn't have that directive.
I guess one thing I would like to let people know is you can't take care of these things too soon. I mean, people can become disabled and in a coma at 24. You've got to study this. You've got to sign the papers, let people know what you want, and do it soon. Because then the burden's taken off the family.
I have lung cancer, stage 4. It spread to my liver, my bones. I am terminal. And I got a few months ahead of me, not too long, but a few months ahead of me. And I'm blessed to be here.
Kevin Brown grew up in Raleigh County.
Okay, so one thing I want to bring up that I've covered on the channel, you can find me talking about cellular memory. This is a wild one. So, they brought up organ trans. I was an organ donor for decades. Okay, on my license. So, say I ended up dying in a car accident or something, or scripted car wreck, then what would happen is they'd keep you alive long enough so that they can donate your organs to someone who needed them. But when you start, and this is a hot button issue. This is not something I even feel comfortable talking about, but I have, right? If you look up cellular memory, if you search my channel, you'll be able to find videos on it. There's only a few, but they're out there. It's really freaky, okay? So what happens is when someone gets one of your organs, they can take on traits that you have. For instance, I think it was like a woman or something who needed a kidney, let's say, right? And, you know, she didn't like beer and chicken wings, right? For her whole life. She hated it. Wouldn't never order it. But then she gets the transplant, and all of a sudden, she likes beer and chicken wings. Well, come to find out, they, you know, these organ donors find out over and over and over again that, you know, this is like a favorite food of the person who passed, leading to a thing called cellular memory. Look it up. It's freaking wild. It's wild. And now, my opinion is this. Like, this is like things embedded in the matrix code, right? So your kidney, like our bodies, our organs, whatever, have these embedded codes within them over the course of our lifetimes. And they could be good, they could be bad. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, you know, you could maybe smoke a lot of weed. Maybe you're a math nerd, you know, whatever, right? I'm just, you like beer, you like chicken wings, whatever, whatever, right? I think these things get like coded into our organs. And then when the transplant occurs, there's a period of time. Sometimes it's short, sometimes it's long, sometimes it stays for a very long time, and then sometimes it disappears too. Like there's really no set time, I guess you can say, where, like, you know, you can say, oh well, you know, after this amount of time it's definitely going to go away. It does seem to go away for most people, but there are some who will say, oh, yeah, I feel like my donor is living through me, right? So my opinion is that this is just kind of embedded from us with the matrix code of our organs, and then it kind of transfers over to the donor at death. It doesn't necessarily mean that our essence is in them, but at the same time, I'm not taking no chances. I'm not taking no chances. I am not an organ donor anymore. And you know what? I know I'll probably get some wrath about it. I have in the past when I've talked about this topic, but I'm just being honest. Those are my organs, and I want them, you know, to be burnt up. You know? I don't want anything remaining, especially if there's this thing called cellular memory. If I never learned about cellular memory, I'd be an organ donor to this day. But I have no. Maybe it's just the matrix code and, you know, DNA thing with my matrix kind of signature still left behind. But nope. No. Not going to happen. Okay? Incinerate me and let's call it a day. Okay? So I'm just throwing that out there. You know, like the organ donor thing is really wild. Look it up, or take a look at my channel if you want to, of me covering the topic. Search cellular memory, and it's wild. Wild. Like, come on. Burn me up, baby.
Well, I have lung cancer, stage 4. It spread to my liver, my bones. I am terminal. And I got a few months ahead of me, not too long, but a few months ahead of me. And I'm blessed to be here.
Kevin Brown grew up in Raleigh County and has been back and forth as a resident of Bowers House as his cancer has progressed.
When you first find out that you get that kind of news, that you're terminal and you have cancer and stuff, it's like a bomb going off your life. And you got places like this you can come to and make peace. My medical power of attorney is to see that my wishes will be carried out. There are no feeding tubes, no life supports, no tubing or anything like that. I'm just to be kept out of pain, left in peace.
Was that a tough decision to make?
Yes, at first. And DNR do not resuscitate. I don't, once God calls me on to be let go. I don't want to be brought back. It's cancer, it's a battle. It's a lot of painful, and it's painful. And I don't want to be brought back to suffer more.
Tell us how you want to live the rest of your life.
I want to be happy. I want to spend what time I can with my family and friends. I just want to be pain-free and be ready when God calls. And I want to be here.
And I understand there's still plenty moments of joy.
Yes.
The staff here tells me that you had a mini party a couple days ago.
Oh yeah, the Halloween thing. We had a mask they brought in, and I've laughed the most since I've been sick. This past week, they brought in a Halloween mask, and we scared each other and stuff like that. And a couple nurses dressed up, and we had a great time. I mean, it's great. It's not sadness, it's laughter and everything. And they do their best to make your joy. I mean, to make you laugh when you come in and everything. And it was worth a lot, and it meant a lot. And it's a real joy to know there are people out there that care to reach out like that to help you. And it's not all about dying, it's about living and being happy in your last days.
You getting all settled in your new space? Yeah. You'd probably be surprised to know that it can be a wonderful and satisfying experience. Speaking to you, I'm a social worker who's been in healthcare for close to 15 years. Probably 5 years ago I would have told you that hospice was not the place for me. But I have really enjoyed this work, and it's a beautiful thing, and it's a very satisfying experience to be a professional on the outside, but also to see families come together. We don't cure people, but we see a lot of healing. We see a lot of families coming together where there may have been rifts in between relationships, where the being faced with the dying allows people to heal those relationships. They can come together, they can remember things from, if it's brothers and sisters who maybe haven't spoken for years, they can get together and talk about their childhood and reflect on their parents. And so we see a lot of healing here.
A lot of reflection goes on, right? And she says we can see a lot of healing go on here. That's a big thing in hospice, right? Kind of goes back to what we were discussing earlier in the stream, how unfinished business gets resolved. Whether to a long lost friend or a long lost love, and just clearing the air, whether good, bad, or indifferent. It's just something that some of us need to do. And like, that's why I was saying, like, try to maybe take care of this sooner rather than later. That way it's done, right? Like, if you're someone you need to apologize to, make the call. Find them somehow. Even if you don't have their number, just try to find them somehow and do what you need to do to clear that, right? That way it's not a burden later on. If you feel it's a burden, you know, again, this is all predicated on if the burden exists, like if you feel that burden exists. Okay?
3/4 of the people who die in this country are over the age of 65. And so with a very old population, these types of decisions are even that much more important to do in advance.
It's involving the patient, involving the family, involving their friends, involving their religious or spiritual issues. So you have a whole package that's making the decision.
And there's some peace to be had when this information is available ahead of time. And so I guess the biggest thing is don't be afraid to bring it up. The conversation will flow.
Okay. So, really, really powerful stuff. And I think they did a really good job with this documentary. And obviously, it was towards those who are residents of West Virginia. But these services are available. And, you know, it does vary a little bit state to state. But it's important to make that known. Like, there is a way for you to find good care on your way out of leaving the matrix, and through, you know, those that are going to show empathy and compassion from start to finish. I would say most of the time. Of course, you know, there's always there's always, you know, people have a bad day or whatever, but, you know, overall, those who work in hospice, they're warriors, they're beautiful, incredible, amazing individuals who got just they're just amazing. And whether you experience them yourself, or if you are in a situation where you experience it, like within your family or something, or your friendship circles, you'll see it. And it's just incredible. They're, I don't know. They just, I don't know how they do it, but they do. And, anyways, so yeah, Dusty, if you ever want to come on down the road, yeah, hit me up, man. It's an open invite, no pressure. Just, probably best to email me and put subject Dusty in the email. That way it stands out. I'm really bad with social media and email and keeping up with the comment sections and all that stuff, but I will try to keep an eye out if down the road in the summer or later on if you decide you want to come on. Open invite, my friend. Even if it's next year, 2 years, 3 years, just know it's an open invite. Anyways, yeah, it's this is like a crazy topic, right? Because we look at this whole thing through a different lens than most. And one of the big questions is, you know, will this, like, if I went down the road of assistance, let's say, if I went down that road, would it impact my, you know, my liberation or something, right? I don't believe for a minute that it does. But at the same time, it has to be said that, you know, is your life truly ending, right? Is your life script coming to an end? That's part of what I think might matter. Now, I can never be 100% on anything, but you know, I think it's up to each of us to make those judgment calls in consultation with our doctors, our family, and our essence, let's say, and figure out where to go from there. Like, I'll never sit here and say that, you know, like, if you're not terminal, that, you know, it's a good thing to do. Like, I just think going down that road, there's a lot involved, and I've read and listened to so many accounts of people who do try to uninstall, that they're, you know, they it's vicious stuff. But I think I don't think, but I would say I would know that like, if your life script's destiny is it's time to, like, it's expiring. It's okay to circumvent the pain, through, open discussion with your family, your doctor, et cetera, right? And so yeah, that's what I would say on it. Like there's a lot of things I'd love to be able to kind of openly talk about, but I just can't. It's just one of those topics it's just way too hot, and but I think if you were listening to the stream tonight, you probably have a good idea of everything I was talking about. And it's like, if you're terminal, you don't have to suffer for months on end just to please yourself, your family. Well, you got to please yourself, right? You got to make the decision that's right for you. So obviously, I should backtrack and say, yeah, no, you need to make the decision that's best for you and give it some proper thought, not just make a snap decision. I think the biggest issue you see with those who uninstall prematurely is that they make snap decisions. And in virtually every single scenario, it doesn't seem, it's not good. Like, and those who are successful, and we have like accounts for who reincarnate, they basically talk about how it's like almost like a reset. Like you're gonna go through this whole thing again. You might have a different parents or something like that, but it's like your life script is rebooted, and like you have to kind of go through some like this whole process again. That doesn't sound good. It doesn't sound like a good idea when, like you're facing a possible memory wipe again. Like, or like it's clouded. Like, you have to think about someone who does go through that process. God, it's such a difficult topic to talk about. I have to think about every single fragment of words that I have to say. When someone makes a decision like that prematurely, there's often an issue with the state of mind in the moment, right, to make that decision. And the one thing we see from those who come back is, it's hellish. It's a hellish experience, and there's like a whole kind of quote unquote learning experience component to that. And some come back and they're, all gung ho, and everything changes for them for the better. A lot of people actually it does, but at the same time, there's like think about where your intentions like building and building and building and building into that moment, and you're more overly consumed in that moment with the meat suit and when things may expire than you are perhaps with the natural ease of expiration that leads to liberation. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're kind of throwing up like a big distraction in your path. That's hopefully I'm explaining it right. But that's really seems to be the best way to put it out there, and I hope it makes sense. And all I would say is, like, if you do feel that way, if like you're not facing something terminal and you're you're facing like not facing a terminal diagnosis or something like that, please consider checking the resources all the way at the bottom of the description page. And I'll be sure to also pin them in the comment section as well. And they are available. And of course, this whole stream is just, me talking. It's my opinion. You have to do your own research, come up with your own conclusions, and make the decision that's best for you. Consult any medical professionals and family and friends and all that stuff. So I think I'll leave it there. This is like one of those topics that I've had on my list for a while, and then there was a comment from, I'm sorry. There was a comment made in a previous video. Adam, right? I think it was Adam. Adam made a comment asking about this topic, and I was like, damn, I got to get right on top of this because it's really important. And I think hopefully at a minimum, if you listen to the stream, you heard about how important preparing all the legal sides to this is, right? We got to think about others too before we leave. We got to think about, setting up, making sure our wills are in order, DNRs or whatever, trusts, all this stuff. You got to make sure that all that's set up so that there's like an ease of the transition process too, right? And that your directives are carried out the way you want them. That's all. And then what it does is if you do face some sort of terminal diagnosis, then it's more time with your friends, your family, loved ones, etc., right? Now I'm going to close this out by saying one thing, and it's kind of going to be a little contradictory to what I just said about spending more time with your friends and family. If you're given a diagnosis and they say, hey, you have like 3 months to live, 6 months to live, whatever, right? This is me. This is what I'm going to do, right? Like I have some really important people in my life that I'm very close with. And I have a very loving girlfriend she's the best. And we've been together for a long time now. And she's just great, right? But she knows that if I were to get something like a terminal diagnosis, that, I'd essentially be wrapping up our relationship right then. Like, not like discarding or anything like that, but she knows that what my intentions are. She knows full well. And that was something expressed to her early in our relationship that, it's like, I don't want any sensory experiences to overtake me as I'm leaving here. I don't. Now, does that mean like you just like we're all going to handle this differently, right? So there's no one size fits all. So like she knows that, there will reach a certain point where I will say, honey, I love you. It's been fun. We had a great time together, but it's time for me to separate from this sensory experience and go on my own. So for instance, like if I had like, let's just say like, as long as it's not someone close to you, I think it's good to to have that separation, right? It's good to have a stranger caring for you because you don't necessarily have any connection like to that person. Yeah, they're caring for you and all that stuff, but they're not, your life partner or your child or your wife or your husband. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's just different. Different. It doesn't mean that you don't appreciate what they're doing to help you in your time of need. It just means that, they're not going to suck you back into the matrix, basically. It sounds so harsh, right? I've brought this up a few times, but it's like if I know I'm about like going to expire sometime soon, I'm going to want a little buffer zone between me and emotionally, sensory, I'm not going to say addictive, but seductive things. So that's probably the best way to put it, and to kind of close the stream out with that. Hopefully it came through properly. I don't know. Hopefully I explained it right. But in short, I'm just trying to say, if you have loved ones, close friends, close family, wife, husband, girlfriend, boyfriend, if you have any of that, right? Those are like kind of ways to continue being sucked into this. But like when you're at the end of the road, and you're at the end of the road for sure, isn't it time to just let go of it all? Isn't that the time? You've heard me 1,000 times on the channel say, I'm not saying get rid of that now or today, but I think when you're faced with the end, that's something else entirely. And I think it's a good exercise to apply on your way out, as difficult as it may be for you and everyone involved. It's a harsh one, right? It's like it's demented. But at the same time, I have to learn to relinquish my attachments. And my attachments may be friends, family, my girlfriend, right? My dogs, right? Those are things I need to let go in that moment, or for a period of time leading into that moment, not just, in the seconds leading down to it, right? I'm not going to allow myself to be distracted. And that's just the bottom line. And so she knows that. Other people know that who are in my life. And that's it. But, it's crazy to think about. Really crazy to think about. Really. But trust me, I'm unrelenting on it. It's not something I'm going to waver on whatsoever. Because that's it, right? I mean, it's like, oh, what? Am I going to get like an extra few weeks or a month with her? Or my dogs or friends or family? No, it's like, there's just going to be a certain cutoff point where everyone just has to leave me alone. That's it. They can come and look at my dead body all they want later on, but but until well, actually no, they could look at my urn with my ashes, because there will be no body. But you get what I'm saying. It's just, God, it's so wild to think about. But it's just never something that I'm going to waver on, ever. Because it's the beginning of the test, guys. You get what I'm saying? It's the beginning of the real test. It's like we have to let go of the sensory experience. We've spent all this time with them, right? And we value and cherish and appreciate all those moments, right? But, you know, when you maybe got a month left, 3 weeks left, there comes a point when you have to go into hyper sovereign spiritual mode. And I think that's part of the test, is to, you know, it's all about relinquishing attachments to this entire shit show of a sensory experience, no matter how good or bad it is. Okay? Yes, it's a test. It's a test. Exactly, perplex. So that's what we, in my opinion, this is what I'm going to do. Everything I just laid out. I'm not going to budge on it whatsoever. And they'll just have to accept it, because nothing's getting in the way of my liberation. Nothing. And I have to start walking the walk and talking the talk when my time's coming. It's that simple. Now, maybe I'm not going to, you know, have this whole drawn out death where I'm going to be able to do all this. Maybe that's the way it's going to be. I don't know. Maybe I'll, you know, who knows how I'm going to go. I don't know. But either way, it's not going to be fulfilling some sensory addiction. That's for damn sure. Anyways, I'm going to leave it there. It's been a lot of fun. If you guys can maybe please consider hitting the like button on the way out, I greatly appreciate it. I do also offer, it's so weird to go into this. I do also offer monthly memberships if you're interested in supporting the channel, where we do a monthly members live stream, usually on the last Sunday of every month, most of the year. And if you're also interested in donating to the channel, it's always appreciated but never expected. And you can find links in the description if you'd like to book a session, or connect with the social media where you can get notifications. And I also have an email list if you'd like to. I set up the email list, I don't know, a long time ago. And I still haven't sent an email out yet, but it's just there in case something should happen to the channel, or if like there's a big announcement like the website finally opening or something. But, you know, I've been saying that for years and it still hasn't happened. All right. Yeah, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate you all. It's been fun. And hopefully this stream helped in some way. And you all take care of yourselves. I'll be over on the Truth in Gaming channel probably sometime this weekend. I actually have an NDE. It's like an NDE cyberpunk noir game I'm going to play eventually. I probably should have set it up to play after this stream, but I didn't do it. But keep an eye on seriously, keep an eye on the gaming channel. I know I've been playing the Kingdom Come Deliverance and all that stuff. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I get it. But I think this near-death experience cyberpunk noir game is really pretty catchy. And I bought it about a month ago, maybe a little longer than that. And I think it's not a long game. I think it's only about maybe 5 or 6 hours, but I think it's got some big truth bombs in it, especially about maybe the future of the Matrix and some general truths. That's just my gut. I'm obviously not 100% on that because I haven't played it yet, but it might be something of interest. So check out the Truth in Gaming channel. You can get a link in the description. All right, my voice is going a little bit. I may head on into the Discord chat after this, so if you're a Last Timers Club member and want to join a group voice chat, I'll be in there for maybe a half hour, an hour. And thank you, everybody. It's been fun. Appreciate you all. See you again soon. Much love. Don't work too hard, okay? And enjoy your weekend.